All right. Is there any public comment? Did anyone have anything they wanted to comment on? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the September minutes? There weren't any, as you guys know, there weren't any October minutes since that meeting was canceled, so we still need to approve the September minutes.
I move to approve minutes from September.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we still need to do the oath of office for you, Cindy, but I think Pinar she must have the information though.
I will get it.
So.
Madam Chairman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Siv.
Yeah, go ahead.
On behalf of the board, I just wanted to apologize for the inconvenience that all of you are going to go through here tonight. We've never done 14 or 15 presentations in one evening, but due to circumstances beyond our control, I guess, here we are. So I would ask all of you, we have your applications on the computer screen here, you know, and we're all good students. We've read them, and when you step up to the table, if you could just keep it short and sweet for the next guy, I guess, what, 15 minutes at the most? You know, if you can't say it within 15 minutes, then, you know, and then that, we'll keep our answers short and brief too, and try to get the last person out of here before the strike of midnight. So. Okay, you got it there. No, I think the bars close at 1, don't they, or something? I don't know, but it's been a while for me. So anyway, thank you, Katie.
I guess can we go ahead and do the vote?
You gotta swear in, or you gotta take care of the transfer.
Yeah. So St. Joachim and Ann had submitted a request to approve, for us to approve a transfer of $3,000 from the homeless rent to the homeless utilities. So we just need to do a vote for that. Can I have a motion?
Can't find Pinar.
Oh, okay.
I'll move to approve the transfer of funds for St. Joachim and Ann.
All in favor?
Aye.
In the county, somebody from county facilities just showed up and said the work order said the building opened at 6:30.
Oh.
So facilities got it wrong.
Well, should we just go forward with the? All right.
Take a
Well,
break.
we can take a break and come back to the oath of office once we find her. So I guess we can go ahead and move on to the presentations. I think the first up is Youth in Need.
Am I just sitting here? Yes.
Sit, stand, whatever.
Okay. Feels awkward either way. Okay. Well, I had a bunch of stuff, but I do feel like you guys are really good stewards of reading our application, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I think just talking about Youth in Need, I'm Dawn Tegler. I'm the Regional Director over Youth in Need's Emergency Shelter and Transitional Living Program out here in St. Charles. So the focus of our shelter is really just meeting the basic needs of all the youth. So the moment they come in, really assessing them for, food, medical, safety, and trying to kind of navigate through there. So while they're with us, we're continually working on stability and working towards safe discharge, working on improving their well-being while they're with us, their coping skills, and trying to improve their mental health. And obviously reunification is always our priority. So even if we're reaching out to a grandma they haven't talked to in a long time, whatever we can to kind of stabilize the family and get them back in with family is always our goal. So kids come to us through lots of different venues. It could be our street outreach team, meeting them out on the street. Sometimes it's a BHR call. We'll assist with kind of the housing piece while they work on the mental health stuff. I know last year we started a diversion program with law enforcement and juveniles, so really trying to keep kids out of the juvenile system. So when they don't score high enough to be detained for a crime, they'll send them to us for our program. That's been a really, really great diversion in keeping youth out of that and have more of a therapeutic swing to what's happened with them. So that's been a really great collaboration. I guess I'll just talk about what makes us different, because every person in this room does really, really great work. But we specifically work with youth, and we're very low barrier. So if you're not suicidal, homicidal, or actively detoxing, so if you don't need to be hospitalized, you can stay with us. We don't ask a lot of questions in the beginning, so we never screen out. And so when youth come in, then we just kind of assess and like navigate through whatever their situation is. We're definitely trauma-informed care, so really understanding that behaviors come from trauma that our youth have faced, and trying to really work through those. A lot of our youth have been trafficked. About 40% of our youth are part of the LGBT community, and so it's definitely something all of our staff are really well trained in. We have lots of partnerships with everybody in this room, as well as coordinated entry, and part of the COC. In 2008, we served about 280 youth. I would say we probably are going to far exceed that this year. We usually say, oh, we'll serve about 250, but we have been full, and I feel like busier this year than I have seen in the past. So I'll be curious to what the numbers are at the end of the year. When we did the PIT count last year, it showed that youth homelessness it was down 8% overall, but for everyone, but youth homelessness had increased 3.4%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually like 87% over the last 5 years. So we're definitely seeing a lot more youth homelessness, so really trying to navigate through that and get youth more towards stability or stabilizing families is super important. So why youth are with us, we just really want to instill hope and like potential, like believing in them when kind of no one else has. And I always say, we get the throwaway kids, we get the ones that everyone's like, I can't deal with this kid anymore. And so really trying to navigate and help them to see themselves as somebody and that they could make a difference. And we just always want to be the place that's different. So providing that safety and security and knowing that they can always come to us and we can figure out how to navigate them through life. So that's it. Any questions?
Madam Chairman? Katie?
Yep.
I got one.
Oh, yep.
Dawn, of all the applications, you have the highest percentage of LGBT people, 40%.
Yeah.
Could you please just briefly address, I guess, the challenges you face or how you come about with it?
I think over time we've definitely become the most LGBT friendly youth services in the area. So we're the only youth services at all in St. Charles, but even in St. Louis County, I think we're definitely known for that. So I think Youth in Need itself has done a whole shift on diversity and inclusion. And so we've really done a lot of work about creating inclusive environments for everyone. And so I think that when youth come, they've talked to their friends that have had similar situations, and a lot of youth have been put out of their homes because they've come out to their families, they've been displaced, and so I think that's been the increase for sure.
So is the emphasis then on counseling or trying to maintain the kids back?
So all youth get exactly the same services. So everyone that comes through has a therapist that they're assigned to that meet with them at least twice a week, and they work on that case management piece of stabilizing them, of what's their next housing, or can we fix things with their family. So I think their track is the same as any other youth.
Thank you.
On the rapid rehousing program that you're starting with St. Joe Command, what's the timeline for that, and how many do you expect to serve?
It started October 1st. Do you know how many we're expected to serve? Five.
5 in what time period? In this calendar year? Or
In a year, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Do you have a sense of why the youth homeless count is going up while it's going down for the adult population?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if it's because parents are a lot less tolerant now, or I'm not really sure, to be honest, what the answer is.
And so your request to us is to basically continue your current operations, nothing new or different, and we would just provide a portion of funding for the emergency shelter. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next up is Habitat.
Hey. So my name is Lauren Grodegears. I'm the fund and fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity of St. Charles County. Right now we are currently in our 22nd year of building. I'm sure most of you are aware of our services and what we provide, but we provide safe, decent, and affordable housing, permanent housing, for families who do qualify for our program. Families who are interested in our homeownership program, they must have lived and worked in St. Charles County for at least 1 year prior to applying. They have to have a need for housing, and that kind of varies between whether it be substandard housing conditions like mold, structural issues, currently living doubled up with other family members, or no permanent housing situation at all. And they have to be making some sort of income and meet our income guidelines and requirements to apply for our program. And then they also become ambassadors for our mission, towards our mission, and with our program, and that's by putting in 300 to 400 sweat equity hours, and that's on building their home, working in our restore. They attend financial education classes. We teach Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and they also get classes on home maintenance, closing, insurance, everything that they need to be prepared to sign on the dotted line on their closing documents the day that they are ready to close on their home. And when they do close on their home, they are signing a mortgage. It's not a free giveaway program. We don't give away free housing. They just aren't paying more than 30% on their income towards their housing. So this ensures that they're moving into an affordable solution and a permanent affordable solution for them and their family. And to give you an idea of our family selection process, this past season in January, we opened up our family selection process, and we received 82 applications from individuals who are interested in partnering with our program. From those 82 applications, we had to narrow that down to 3. And that is with our family selection committee. They go through all these applications. They interview everybody who's interested, and they interview all the applicants. And they do background checks, credit checks, and they do home visits and site visits to verify their need as well. Families who did go through our process but weren't chosen for partnering with us, we do give them options and resources. This past year, this was our first year that we started a Homebuyer Readiness program, and it was a one-on-one mentoring coaching on financial education with financial experts in the community, with bankers in the community, and they were given classes every other week, and then the other weeks they were actually partnering one-on-one with these coaches towards their financial goals, whatever it may be, whether their goal is to eventually be able to apply and partner with us, or if it's to work on getting a loan on their own, or just work on increasing their savings and decreasing their debt. They worked one-on-one with that. And with this first year, we were able to partner with 30 individuals during that process. For our 2020 Community Assistance Award Grant, we are requesting funds to be allocated towards 2 homes in St. Charles City off of Kings Highway Drive. We purchased a home lot that had been burned down, and we decided after investigating, we tore the house down, and because of the lot size, we were actually able to build 2 homes on this one lot. So we are going to be we purchased a lot, and we're going to be starting in the spring of 2020 after our family selection process of pouring the foundation and breaking ground towards 2 homes in that area. So we're hoping to start in the spring, and then our families will start working on their sweat equity and taking their classes, and our goal is to have them move in before the end of 2020. And right now with the funding from last year's Community Assistance Board, we're actually working on a home. We're in the process of building a home in Wentzville right now with the Jenkins family. She's a single mother with a daughter, and she has full custody of her special needs sister as well. And we are working on, we're having regularly built scheduled days right now out there. We have the exterior walls up and the interior walls up, and we're working on roof and siding on that home right now. So we are in action with our funding from that home. So we are hopeful that she'll be moving into her home in the next couple of months. And like I said, we're building regularly, so we're always open for you guys to come out and visit and kind of see where your money is being put into action. So, are there any questions?
Your application, Lauren mentions 2 homes on Transit Street.
Yes.
Where's Transit Street?
So it's in St. Charles City off of Kings Highway. It's kind of by Lindenwood University, back in that area.
So the hometown area.
So when the homes go in, are there other Habitat homes on Transit Street? Or is this the first 2?
We actually have one on the other side of Transit Street that we built back in 2012. But in this area specifically, this is our first.
So the neighbors buy into the Habitat homes when they move in?
Do what?
The neighboring neighborhood, they accept the Habitat homes when they...
Sure. So before we actually start building, we actually go around and we have postcards and pamphlets with information about us and what we're going to be doing, just to kind of prepare them, because it is a lot for a neighborhood, especially when one day there's nothing and then the next day there's 20 cars and 30 individuals outside working and building. So we make them know, we make it known that we're coming, and we are able to answer any questions or address any concerns that they have.
Your family selection committee, is that a local committee or?
It's a group of volunteers. Our homeowner support manager leads that committee, and it's about 15 individuals who volunteer their time for the committee.
The last thing is, you just mentioned having a visit. We've never went to a Habitat built home. And if that could be, if we could intrude upon the family, that would be fantastic if we would.
Yeah, everybody, you're always welcome to come out when we're building it, and then at the end we always have a dedication ceremony for anybody and everybody to join us and be a part of that, and it's kind of the final step for that partner family step into homeownership.
Okay, well, if we could ever visit one, that would be
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, I'll be happy to give you information.
Jimmy Carter shows up.
Right. Maybe not so much now, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
I have a question.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, it wasn't you that did the presentation, there was an issue when you have your 80 families that come in. Were showing difficulty with people having a good credit rating, and understanding their credit rating had to be in order to be able to get a Habitat home. Do you still have the same problem? Because she was talking about trying to do some education into what you need to do to get your credit rating where it needs to be.
Right, and they offer those, like I said, the Homebuyer Readiness classes. They go through that pretty in depth and let them know what's good credit and bad credit, because we look at all forms of credit and we consider, school credit, medical debt, things like that. They go into those and determine, what's good, what's bad, because not all bad credit's going to automatically take you out, but then they do provide the education to teach them on how to improve it and what steps they can take to make that happen.
And I worked on 2.
Awesome.
Which 2 people I worked with.
Cool. Great.
It was fun, actually.
It was. I like it.
Can you talk about your longer term outcomes for families that have gone through the program who are in housing? What percentage are continue to be housed, pay off their mortgage? Can you talk about some of those outcomes?
So we are in our 22nd year, and when we first started, they did 20-year mortgages, and now they do 30-year mortgages. So we've had a couple who have paid off their mortgage, and they are still living in their home. We've had families who were able to move on from the Habitat partnership, and they were because they wanted to. We had a woman who got married and decided, I don't need this anymore, so she moved along and moved on to bigger and better things. And then we've had families who are still living in their home, and we have a woman in particular who she raised 4 of her own children, and because of her Habitat home has fostered 13 to 15 children throughout the home as well. So just, they are good stewards, and they continue to provide what they were given. They continue to bless others through that partnership too.
For that woman who moved out, what do you do with that home then? Do you sell it, or do you make it available to another?
We've sold one before, and then we also do we have done a cash for keys program as well, where we will take the home and then actually provide them with the funding or a little bit of funding as well, and I don't know the whole details for that. But then we end up recycling the home and then renovating it with whatever it may need be, and then moving a new family into the home as well. Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, Link.
Hello, I'm Kathy Thompson with Link, and we're in our 27th year of serving in the community, and we're grateful for all you volunteers do at the CAB board for so many, I guess we've, for at least 2 decades, so we're very grateful for that. I thought it would be best if I just read straight through it to be quicker, and then that way you can ask whatever questions you have for us. Link is currently helping in the St. Charles County with our homeless and indigent program, serving the targeted population of the 25 to 50%, which is the trying working poor, and then also the 0 to 25%, including those that are not working but has to have an emergency reason or a good reason as to why they are not working, while coaching the others that may be not working for questionable reasons. We have a robust interview form, and we go through the process of your part, our part, and we want them to be a good citizenship of the community. So we do spend a lot of time in case management with that to see where you at and why are you here and what are your goals for the future or to get yourself out of this situation you're in. In the area trend, we're seeing less and less affordable housing. It's just hard to find what is affordable in our St. Charles County. And so we have just, for 27 years, we've just really took the approach of how hard we can work on prevention. Because we know that keeping a family in their current address is critical, since there is fewer on the market. Link continues to partner with the homeless and prevention of homeless effort through the 211 coordinated entry, and that's fun. We get referrals from there for case management as well, even though funding may not be fully lasting us the whole year to help out with the families that are calling us or walking in with needs or referrals from the community. But one of my favorite stories from the coordinated entry 211 program is when I had worked with a mommy who fled from her home. Even though she paid her June rent, she still left her home in the middle of that month with her 4-year-old daughter because her daughter had been touched inappropriately and they were living out of their car. And we had spent, she worked part-time, so she was coming in a couple of hours, a couple times a week. What's next? Where does her car go? Where does her hotel go? Where does her address going to be? That type of thing. So we gave respite care for her 4-year-old daughter while she tried to get things together. And the fun part for me for coordinated entry 211, I was so desperate because it had been days and hours and dealing with this little family trying to get her somewhere other than her car. And even when she went to protective shelter, she was found. We were called after hours. I called the cell phone of the manager for coordinated entry, and she was able to get me right into a shelter with an empty bed right then and there so she could get plugged into the program and find the shelter she needed. And so here we are in October. She works full-time, and she has a Wentzville address, and it's baby steps at a time that we can get the support families need in that way. Link continues to see a trend in the increased population that we serve, or the calls coming in, and that's folks dealing with waiting on disability and told by their attorneys they shouldn't work, or denied disability claims, and grandparents raising grandchildren still seems to be on the rise for us. We fed over 5,000 individuals this past year in the Hope Food Pantry, and on a good note, that number is decreasing, probably about by 5,000 in the year due to really good economy, good jobs, Winsfield GM plant and all the growth that they're having out there and all the supportive around GM plant. We see a lot of our folks finding jobs and holding down jobs. One area that your funding doesn't necessarily help, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of the rest of what Link is like. We have a preschool with affordable childcare because we believe that that's a big part of the gap, to keep the job and try to work and not be homeless. And that is an area that is a full area doing really well with 75 kids on the waiting list. So we're actually in the beginning process of applying for NAP credits to try to build another building for those kids, as well as what I'm super excited about too is offering skill trade, hands-on job teaching, and this would be something that would be the quick turnaround. So we meet the person who is having a trouble finding a skill or a job, and we want to teach them within like 3 days or 3 weeks just how to not only interview a resume, we've done that in the past, but equipment with hands-on, even how to handle tools, things like that. So we're going to call that a skill trade work center. So it's not a certified like Rankin, you go through the 2-year process or anything to do with the community college. This is a group of people who they're businesses and builders of subdivisions and can't find hireable workers to keep. There's just a shortage on that. In fact, that's a nationwide problem, not so much just in our county. So we're excited that if we go through with this NAP credit program, we'll be able to build a facility of classroom for adult hands-on training in that way. The EWR, we continue to plug in with that with the community when it comes to the homeless and the indigent in that respect. Your monies have been going to rent and utilities, respite care, daycare, as I mentioned in that little 4-year-old girl. We were able to use your monies in that way. And, just that hotel and try to get them off the street. I'm just going to skip a little more of who we are because I know you have that in your homework and you can find that on websites and things. But we're very excited about what we've seen and the growth that we've seen at Link. We actually have under a 3% admin rate right now. We just finished our budget for 2020 and what we're turning into a Better Business Bureau to get all of that ready. And we have in the past reached our measurable of success at the 94% rate with your money and other monies in this category of homeless and indigent monies in that way. So super excited that you're able to support us in the past, keep us growing, and keep us out there for the community to help those that are in a true need, true homeless or just about to be homeless. And we work really hard at trying to find the resources and partnering with them and the case management with them to keep them in their current address and their current stability of schools. Questions about Link or programs that we have?
Go ahead.
So Kathy, you said you served 1,900 individuals this past year, or this is how many you anticipate?
I think that's the number that you have in the grant for the full amount. I have some numbers that I'll drop off.
Of the people that you serve, how many people have to come back and have more additional services? And
If they're coming back to us, it's for case management and follow through, maybe another resource or another idea, working on their goals together. We try really hard. And I know the community calls us. We got you on you helped us last September. It's on my calendar. Well, it doesn't work that way. You don't just get to call us every September. There has to be the true emergency reason. And there has to be, why are you here in this situation? An emergency is something that is out of your control that happened to you and your family. And we go through the steps pretty seriously and not return. Unless there is ongoing cancer treatments and just that whole real reason why they can't, work or find other resources, it's very rare we help someone financially again. in that way. Other ways, you know, maybe clothing and food vouchers and ongoing food pantry and case management, and how can we, you know, help you with childcare, different things like that. Or reach out to other churches so they pop in, you know, or I get them adopted out to another church or agency. Yeah. Any other questions?
You used a number said your past outcomes were 94%, but what does that represent?
Of success rate.
But what does that mean? 94%?
Staying in the application, I think we write what our outcomes are and how we measure that outcome. And this is folks who stay in their home the 30 to 90 days. We have a follow-up system. So we're calling everybody that we financially helped with your funds as well as other funds saying, how's it going? How you doing? What about the things that we talked about? And we also do that at the 60 and 90 day. And if we can't reach them by telephone, because that is a common thing for the cell phone services to be shut off, we'll actually mail a letter of concern and how are you? We have a survey. You know, did we ask you these things? What else could we have offered to you? I'm just trying to learn a bigger picture from that of what are gaps and what are true needs, that type of thing. So that's how we measure.
Do many of those come back when you mail them? When you mail them?
You'd be surprised. We put the self-addressed envelope in there, and we do get a fair number of that. We do. And not everyone, even though they, I'm sure, have wasted that stamp. That's 50 cents, but we try. We try. Yep. Other questions?
My wife had one for me. I must know where I'm at. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I did have one, Kathy. In a comment. Number one, the comment, I guess, is Link is the best service agency serving Western St. Charles County. You're it, aren't you? You got NECAC out there.
I have a lot of friends everywhere.
Yeah. But if it wasn't for Link,
And I appreciate that encouragement. I really
I'm
appreciate
not
that.
sure what those people would do.
I do appreciate that.
So that's my attaboy. Anyway, I didn't realize, on your application, you showed 60% of your clientele is disabled. That's what it shows. I didn't realize it was that. Did that include men, women, children?
Well, adults.
Just
It
the
doesn't
adults, not
include
kids.
children.
Okay.
Even like if the mother or caretaker had to stay home with a child with a disability, it doesn't count that. It's marked on our intake form. One of the things that can be one of our pet peeves is sometimes you see able-bodied young adults who appear that they could work, and we try to say what's wrong, or I twisted my ankle. And you know, some things, especially back in the day when we were all farmers and worked really hard, we want to make sure that we talk them through that journey. That can you find something, you know, to do in child care if you couldn't stand, or you know, that's tough. I think that a lot of them are saying that they're self-diagnosing that they're disabled. So it's not a fun part of our job, but we have to walk them through that a little bit to say, you know, have you ever thought about doing, or have you ever thought about doing? And it's hard. It's hard to know. I'm not going to say I have all the perfect answers in that whole disability of things, but yes, that's how they answer on the form.
Good.
Let me grab another question. Do you serve anybody out of Western St. Charles County?
We actually serve a tri-county area, but with your funding, of course. It's St. Charles County residents.
Do you see many that aren't from Wentzville, say?
I used to keep the zip code tallied, but Wentzville, then O'Fallon, Lake St. Louis. So, but we do still see the city of St. Charles. We do still see Orchard Farm, and that can be like a 40-minute drive when we go all the other way to Portage de Sioux, but we do see those things. Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other questions? I'll leave this with you. I didn't put it in there. And it's just a snapshot of how we served. Thanks, guys. How you do?
I'm Cheryl with NECAC. Good coordinator. And let's see, I can get started. So NECAC has been in business for 54 years, since 1964, with the signing of the Economic Opportunity Act. So we're one of the largest of 19 not-for-profit community action agencies. And we do serve the low-income, elderly, disabled, and the disadvantaged individuals and their families. And this is made possible through the grants that you guys provide. We have private donors, not-for-profit organizations also provide the monies, state and local government as well. So we can't do it without you. NECAC operates more than 60 different programs through 30 different types of funding. So we have a lot of funding, and we actually serve thousands of people, including individuals and families, each year. NECAC is requesting a large sum of money, $35,000 per cab for the funding. So we actually ran out really quite fast last year, to the point where we weren't able to help a lot of people. And I did find out with looking at the report that we actually had to turn away 775 individuals and or families because the need is really growing. St. Charles is growing so to the point where the bigger, the county is growing, the faster it's growing, the more the need is. So we serve the Tri-County. So we're seeing a lot when people lose their job. I actually see them come to the office with bills in their hands saying, I just lost my job and I need help with paying a bill. Or a lot of disabled or elderly, they're trying to make a decision as far as, I need to pay my bill or do I get my car fixed? So, and they just juggle all the time trying to find out what to do. And they call us. We get a lot of calls every day, all day. So we're there to help. And like I said before, thanks to you guys and the funding that you guys provide, that we're able to do that. We can't do it alone or without you. So we work very, very, very hard to make a difference, empowering people, while in return, we hope that the service that we are providing, assist them with changing their lives and building a strong community in the area. So we work hard really with them, trying to educate them on the services that we have. The funds that we are requesting would help with financial assistance to prevent and reduce homelessness. So that's mainly the main reason that we're up here, to help prevent homelessness. So that's what we're really aiming for. This includes, we help with short-term housing and long-term housing as well. So with the short-term housing, that's going to be the hotel stay or the motel stay. And the long-term housing, that's going to be with the Section 8. And we also work with the VASH vouchers for the veterans, helping them get housed. And as of 11/1, we did open the Section 8 housing, so that's open now. And that's open for all the states, not just the state of Missouri. So anyone can apply. So hopefully we can keep the Section 8 housing open. So that is the plan. So with that, the funds that we are looking for to being awarded, it's going to help with the foreclosures, keeping them from being foreclosed on, evictions, utility disconnections as well, any type of rental assistance that may come up that they're needing help with. We require case management or targeted coaching with that as well. So for those who are homeless or actually near homeless, they can receive up to $1,500 with the grant, with the CAB monies that we would receive. And again, that would help with the rent, the mortgage, and the utilities and or deposits. Okay, so for those who are literally homeless, it requires more financially to get them housed. So they can receive up to $3,000 for rent and mortgage and utilities and deposit, and also hotel stay. My favorite part when it comes to working with the clients or with the community is being able to bundle services or work with other agencies. It gives me an idea who can do what or what services they can provide. That's the best part to me of my job, besides helping them stay housed, but working with other agencies. So I do really enjoy that. And some of the agencies that we do work with would be the Link, as Kathy did state, St. Joachim and Calvary, St. Vincent and de Paul are a few of the agencies we do work with. to bundle services. And when we do work with them, what I like to do whenever I get a chance to work with the clients, I will ask them if they could share, engage in sharing with the rental assistance. So if they're needing $700, I ask them, how much can you provide? I just want them to make sure that they can engage and feel good about being able to help, with assistance that they do need. So a lot of times they are able. I don't care if it's like $100, that's $100. And we can save that for something else or go towards another client. So I do actually ask that question. And when we bundle services or leverage services, we have the Skill Up program is really new for us as of December. It'll be a year, so we have those services. So we just really try to work with them to keep them in their homes as long as they can, as we can. So we'll do like energy assistance, a LIHEAP program. We have that. We have, of course, we have the WIC services as well, women, infant, and children up until they're 5 years old. So we have the weatherization too, because usually when they qualify for LIHEAP, they also qualify for weatherization as well. So those are some of the services we like to bundle with or leverage with a rental assistance to keep them in their homes longer. With the funding this year, so far we've had assisted like 2 adults, and this is for the homeless, and this is for the 0 to 25% poverty level. 2 adults, 2 families we have assisted so far, and let's see, 26 to 50% we've assisted with 3 adults with 2 children, also 3 families and 1 veteran. With the indigent funds, we've assisted 0 to 25% 2 households, a total of 3 adults and 6 children. For 26 to 50%, we assisted 2 households with a total of 2 adults and 5 children so far. And now, I believe the money started, we got the money in March or April. We're almost depleted the funds. So we're about 65% or more just about done with the funds. So it's really a big need. As I stated earlier, I mean, St. Charles County, Tri-County is just really growing, and so the need is growing as well. So I did talk about turning away 775 individuals in our families, and that's not duplicated at all. So those are the numbers that we have seen we had to turn away because of lack of funding. So also I wanted to talk about. Usually the clients, as you probably already know, they lack income. So the income is not there, the low pay. So that's an issue too. With the elderly and disabled, they're living on a set income. So that also plays a part in not being able to pay their rent or pay on time or stay current with their rent. So what we're looking for 2020, we would like to serve between 30 and 35 families. Household members, really 30 to 35. When we're looking at that, because we see that everyone do not have to agree to case management. So we're looking 30 to 35. So achieve would be 30, with maybe 5 people not wanting to do it, even though it's not mandatory. But we would really like them to do it as voluntary. That would give us a achievement of 86%. That we will work with them. And we know that we can do that, or it will be successful because of the goals that we have to set, the case management. We'll work with them with short-term and long-term goals. And we're required to follow them 6 to 12 months. Really a year is what we're required to follow them through with case management. Also, another goal of ours is to, the first goal was the low-income homeless improvement and to improve their lives. The second one would be the stable housing, to maintain stable housing. So we're looking at a 98% success goal with 86 out of 88. So looking at maybe 86 people would be willing to accept, the guidelines for receiving help. So we're looking to help, and that would equal to, let's see, 86 to 88, and 98%. And that's with case management. Once again, that's a long and short-term goal, so we're looking to work with them to make sure keeping them housed. As far as unique, I believe NECAC is unique and engaging with the clients, making sure that they stay engaged with us. I believe with bundling many of the services that we have, and I talked about those, like the WIC family planning, and family planning doesn't include Planned Parenthood, nothing like that, no abortions or anything like that. So also we have the in-home services for the elderly and disabled, and I think that's really a key. We have trained aides to perform those tasks, such as like the homeowners, not homeowners, but homemakers type chores, personal care, respite, and services like those. We also have the FSS counselor. I think that's another plus. That's a family self-sufficiency program where they have to be like Section 8 clients in order to receive or be entered into that program. So it's a working program. They have to work for 5 years, and they would actually put into, as part of their rent that they pay would be put into an escrow. And that money would also, from our funds, be also matched or also put in that escrow. After 5 years, they graduate and they take that money and they can either pay off credit card bills or actually pay down on a home. And we did have a few people, I think 2 people this year who actually did that, have a nice down payment on a home. So we also have certified counselors, certified through HUD, so I think that makes us different. Let's see, I think that is it, but do you guys have any questions for me?
So I do. Your 2 outcomes. The first outcome, I would just like to suggest that that's more of an output, that you're tracking, did they create a work plan that doesn't really talk about any change that's happened as a result of that work plan. And the second one, you're looking to see if they are still in housing 1 week after the application. But you mentioned that you track people for longer, so I would suggest that tracking people for just 1 week after they receive services doesn't tell you much. Do you have longer term, how long are you tracking clients? This shows that you're only tracking them for 1 week.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Okay.
We actually, maybe that's a typo. That's got to be a typo because we have to do case management on a monthly basis with them. Sometimes they don't show up, so if we can even get them on the phone and call, we have to track notes and have notes in our system. And that information is sent over to the central office where one of the ladies who actually track all of that information, gather all that data. So 1 week is not accurate, not at all.
So what would be more appropriate? So this outcome that you put in the grant application, 86 of 88 clients, how long after receiving rental assistance, how long are you expecting them to maintain housing?
Okay, so yeah, I see that one. It's got to be a typo because we have to follow them according to the guidelines for a year.
So what did you need? I guess is what I'm asking.
It should be, let's see, homeless prevented by 1 week. It has to be 1 year of application, yes, because we have to follow them for a year.
Okay. All right. So you're hoping that 98% of people that you serve will still maintain housing a year after you've provided the initial assistance.
Right, and what I did find out with talking to the central office, they don't have the numbers yet, but most of the people that we see every year, they're not repeat clients or participants. It's a very small number of those who are repeat. And that is true for like energy assistance. And we did get the number for that. For energy assistance, there's actually a 2.4% that receive assistance every year. And now those are our repeat. That's how low that is. But we're seeing new people all the time. So yeah, I gotta make sure they know that that's 1 week instead of 1 year. That's not accurate at all. Okay. Any more questions? Well, thank you for your time. Mm-hmm.
I have a few handouts. I've got our impact report, and then we just got our calendars in, so we're sending them to everybody. So feel free to take one of those. Pass them around, I suppose. So my name is Lindsay Kayaka. I am the program quality manager for the crisis nurseries of St. Charles County. I also have Nicole Dooley with me. She's our program coordinator for our St. Charles nursery. Some of you might recognize her if you were at the meeting when she gave the tour. So the Crisis Nursery is so thankful for the support of the Community Assistance Board and for your belief in our mission over the past number of years. Since you do already know about us, I thought that I would provide just a brief overview of the services that we provide. Also let you know about some of the trends that we've been seeing in the last year or so, and then see what questions that you have. So essentially, the Crisis Nursery, we take a multifaceted approach to ending child abuse and neglect. We are really focused on those families in our community with the most risk factors, those families who are really, really struggling with homelessness, extreme poverty, a lack of a support system. Last year, we had more than 2,000 admissions of St. Charles County children to our 3 crisis nurseries. So we have the crisis nursery that you probably saw that's over here. We also have a smaller crisis nursery on our campus in St. Charles, as well as one out in Wentzville. So we really try to cover the whole county with those. But our program is not just our crisis care. So essentially, the first part of our program has to do with going to where families are. Our family empowerment team conducts all different canvassing events throughout the community, throughout the year. We spend time going to where we know families are. That means WIC offices, that means food pantries. We have really close partnerships with these agencies in the community, because what we know is that while these services are critical, it is really scary to reach out for help, especially when you have kids, especially when you're afraid of what that can look like, when you're scared of losing your kids. And so we really focus on those outreach efforts, and through that, we're able to come into contact with those families in our community who really need us. And then our phone starts ringing on our 24-hour helpline. We are open 365 days a year. We joke around with Youth in Need that, on Christmas Eve, we're there too in the middle of the night, and we're always available there for families. And we get calls for all different crisis situations, from homelessness to domestic violence to mental health emergencies to parents that are just so overwhelmed. You wouldn't believe the number of parents that call us because they're first-time parents and they say, I have a 5-month-old that won't stop crying, and I've been up for days, I don't have any support, I don't know what to do. So we really are getting a variety of families that call us for care. And once they come and bring the children in, we're providing immediate support for that family. So one of our intake counselors sits down, does a basic needs assessment, does a protective factors assessment, and is really identifying what's going well for that family and also what's helped contribute to the crisis that they're in. Because we know that people don't come into a crisis situation overnight. There's usually a lot that goes into that. So we do a thorough assessment, and we sit down and we talk about the goals that that parent needs to accomplish before they come pick the kids up. From there, we're providing that support for our kids. So if you got to see the nursery, you saw that all of our nurseries are very home-like. We try to make it so comfortable for our kids. We provide medical assessments, developmental exams. We also do the art and play therapy for our kids. One of the studies that we did in the last year identified that 80% of our kids hadn't had a physical in more than a year when they came to see us. And the majority of our kids are 5 and under, so we know how critical it is for kids to be getting that preventative care. So we're able to provide that support for kids. And then we're able to address any concerns that come up and get families directly linked to primary care physicians. One of the other things that's huge about that is that we know just with some of the things going on in the state legislature, there are a lot of families who have dropped off of health insurance, a lot of those super low income families. And so instead of figuring out what happened, a lot of them just aren't getting those services reinstated, and then they're not getting care for their kids. So that's been a big thing that we've been running into in the last year. And then from there, we really focus on getting our families connected with our aftercare services through our family empowerment program, so that we're able to address that immediate crisis with that family to make sure those kids are safe when they go home. But we're also able to get them connected with longer-term services that can address the root causes of what's going on. So that's kind of our services in a nutshell and who we are and what we do. And the last year, a couple of things that we've seen, like I mentioned, some of the medical stuff.
But we're also seeing that the intensity level of crisis has really gone up. So we've had a 15% increase from 2017 to 2018, and the percentage of, like, the number of calls we've been getting. So there's that first. But then we've also seen an increase in the number of families reaching out related to a housing crisis. At this point, it's 1/4 of our families that are experiencing some sort of a housing crisis when they come in. So that can be families that are immediately homeless. Last year we had 50 families that called in that were unsheltered homeless. But then there's that whole, like, 1/4 of our admissions that are related to housing in some nature. So that's been a big thing. We continue to see the impact of the opioid crisis on our families. We've been getting more calls from Children's Division to provide support and help take care of children while Children's Division works with the parent to determine if they can even maintain custody. So we've been seeing some really tough stuff. That has led to longer lengths of stay. So whereas our averages used to be a little bit shorter, now we're seeing that families are needing 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 days to resolve a crisis, because when you're having to do something like detox or address a really significant mental health issue, it is taking a little bit longer. So that's something that we have seen, that we are starting to get a little bit longer lengths of stay, which is impacting the total number of kids that we can serve. But we feel like it's critical in order to help those really high-risk families to meet those goals from intake to discharge. And so with all of those things, we do continue to have really positive outcomes. So we continue to remain right at 99% of our kids that are still able to return home with their parents, which is, you know, what we're all really hoping for and going for with these super high-risk families. The other thing is that 96% of our parents meet the goals that they set at intake by discharge. And we think that a lot of that has to do with helping get those families directly connected with other resources in the community. Coordinated entry has been just a godsend for so many of our families. And then we've also been able to have that reciprocal relationship where they're sending families to us as well. So that's kind of the update about the crisis nursery. What questions can I answer?
Good.
Lindsay, right?
Yes.
You show that 70% of your clients are homeless.
That's for the percentage of clients that we're asking for CAP funding to assist with. So we specifically only ask for 120 kids each year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's of those 120 kids, we're using our funds for 70% of them are homeless. So the CAB funding we specifically allocate for our kids that are experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty.
So the homeless, are they like living in hotels or someone's basement, someone's garage, or can you?
So it depends, and if you guys are interested in even more specific, we can certainly be more specific next year. So some of those are unsheltered. I mean, in the last month since we've been here, we've had one family that came to us and had been sleeping in their van. We had another family that had been a little bit further out. They had started in St. Charles County, and then they were further out, and they were actually like camping out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came back into St. Charles County. We had another family that had fled from domestic violence, and they were also in their vehicle. So a lot of times when we're talking about unsheltered, it's camping or sleeping in cars. But then we have a whole lot more families that call in and say, like, I was evicted and I just don't know where I'm going next. So the kids come with us, we work on a plan with them for identifying a family member first if possible, and then moving on with coordinated entry after that.
Besides keeping them safe, I mean, I'm very glad to hear that then you take care of, you know, making sure they got their shots, and the doctor looks at them, and you know, these parents aren't doing that, which I guess they don't have the means to, but every baby deserves good treatment.
Absolutely.
That prevents so much down the line, so.
Yeah, and we really see it as that early intervention, and yeah, it's tough. You know, families are trying to make ends meet. They're trying to figure out where they're staying, and sometimes, especially with like those developmental assessments, you'll have families that are like, well, I kind of knew for a while something's been going on, and so we'll get a 4-year-old that's not talking yet, and we haven't had any services, you know, and so it is being that first point of contact to say, we're going to help address the immediate crisis for your family, but we're also going to recognize the other things that we need to start making a plan for, because those are important too for your kids.
Thank you.
So you said the average, like, I guess, period of time where they come in and you help them, so you said 5, it's a little bit longer, like 5 days, you
So
said?
we
versus-
have been averaging around like 48 hours of care. Like most of our stays had been like 24 to 48, and now we're much more on our average is 48 to 72, but we're having more of those longer stays. So then of course they all balance each other out, but it's not been uncommon for us to get a family that stays with us 5 days, which previously we would have not seen that very much. Like 3 was kind of our max. So we've been pushing that a little bit more. And part of the reason we're able to do that is we do have some more supports in place, especially with our bigger kids. Once they see all these other kids going home and staff is changing over, and then the anxiety of why am I not going home, that can get really tough. And so as we have brought in additional support with our play therapist that joined us in the last couple of years, and then some of our additional staff training that we've been providing, we feel like we're better equipped to support kids for a little bit longer term and help reduce some of that anxiety. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our ladies in.
Hi, good evening. I'm Denise Fondren. I'm the program director at Our Ladies Inn in Defiance, Missouri. And here are just a few handouts that you can have as a resource after this is done. There we go. Okay, Our Ladies Inn began in 1982. We opened our first home in St. Louis, Missouri. In 2006, we came out into the St. Charles County area, opening a house in Defiance, Missouri. Our Ladies Inn caters to homeless pregnant women and their dependent children. They can stay there for up to 1 year. Our referrals are through 211 coordinated entry. They're entered into Caseworthy, where their information is shared amongst all the other agencies. To give you a generality how Our Ladies Inn operates, a referral is made, and Our Ladies Inn, we actually do a triage using a shelter call. Upon acceptance, the mom is in several intake processes with the case manager, our nurse, our counselor, our child advocate. And after meeting with these particular staff people, goals are set for the moms to achieve through the year that they can stay there. Not all moms stay for a year, but they can stay up to 1 year. Our stay is usually 30, 60, 90 days, depending on what the mom wants to take away from the program. We not only cater to the mom, but we work with our children. We send them out to resources such as Youth in Need, Head Start, if they need any kind of counseling, because just as the mom had come in with trauma, it kind of trickles down to the children. Our moms are sent out to services because the highest population we have is with substance use and mental health. And a lot of our ladies come from domestic violence situations. So those are the things that we cater to, so that when they are out in the community, they have been addressed. They may not be fully healed from it, but they're in a process. We link them to services such as Preferred Family Health for substance use. We send them to Compass Health because of mental health issues. And we just create a wraparound service so that when they're no longer at Our Ladies Inn, they still have these services in place and can continue those treatment programs that would take them even further after leaving our shelter. We have a 2-year aftercare program that picks up after they leave Our Ladies Inn. And what that program does, it continues the work that had already begun while they were in the shelter. And after that 2 years, some of our clients still kind of keep in touch, just so, because we have become a support system to them. Our Ladies Inn, we have taken on a new approach of treatment called trauma-informed care. And it's not so much as talking to our ladies about what they're doing, but we want to understand why. Why the outburst? Why, she's not able to really make it in the community. And once we understand the why, then we can address that issue. And that is the issue that landed them into Our Ladies Inn, because they were making poor choices. The lack of support, the lack of family, and a lot of times their trauma is the thing that was being addressed when they became substance use. So those are the biggest things that we really work with, because getting housing is important, getting work is important, but if we don't address the underlying issues, lack of housing would be again, and the mental health and the substance use would continue. So I'm just going to kind of give a story of one of our clients to give a generality of how all of this comes together. We had a young lady come to us, I would call her Miss T, and she was transferred to us because she had been incarcerated. She was wearing an ankle bracelet, and a lot of her activity was recorded through the courts. After being with us and following the court and what they stipulated, she was able to have the ankle bracelet released. She delivered her baby and she began working. She took on a part-time job in a fast food just so that she can be making some money, because we do have a savings program. The ladies are required to save a minimum of 50% of their income after budgeting what they need to pay out. So she had her baby in daycare. She was able to land a full-time job. And after landing the full-time job, she purchased a car, and it extended her hours, so she was able to save even more money. She had 2 daughters that were in custody with another family because of her incarceration. She was able to reunite with those children, and she was able to get a better job because she had a skill, had gone to school for cabinet making. So she was able to get a position doing what she loves. After saving her money, she ended up and she reunited with her other 2 daughters, the new daughter she had in-house, and she had her own housing. So these are the things that we work with, and what, like I said before, getting them those external needs are important, but if we don't deal with the root of the problem, then they're only going to return again. So that's pretty much what we do at Our Ladies Inn. We refer our children to the Francis House School District so that they have what they need. And we utilize Crisis Nursery. We're probably that homeless population that she talked about. They come from Our Ladies Inn. So, any questions?
Okay. Of the 138 calls that you got, you've supported 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because did you turn the others away, or were some of those like they decided not to take service?
Well, a lot of them decide not to come when we make that conversation with them. They found alternative housing, and they decide that what we have to offer is not what they're looking for. So that's where the 138 and only serving 40.
Is that just in St. Charles County, or is that?
That's St. Charles
just
County.
St. Charles County?
Yes. Yes.
The outcomes that you have listed in your grant applications, again, I would suggest that there are more outputs. Can you talk a little bit more about, from a housing standpoint, you talked about past outcomes in your application from the standpoint of birth weights, which is fantastic. Tell me about housing. So once they leave your program, do you track them for a period of time to see, do they maintain housing? Can you talk about past outcomes and
Yes,
what would you hope to accomplish?
Yes, we do a tracking. That's where we have our 2-year aftercare program. And what that case manager does, she follows them for 2 years up to their choice. And, you know, she's the one that maintains the connection, and we know just how they're doing, you know, during those 2 years.
And what's the success rate in clients maintaining housing?
So
during
far,
that 2 years?
they have been doing very well. Unfortunately, we have ladies that leave the program prematurely, and they have these ideas. And it's our responsibility that when they leave our ladies in, we have a conversation with them to find out how stable their goal is to leave and have housing. And unfortunately, some of them don't land in a good place. But majority of our ladies, I can't really put a percentage on it, but a lot of them have housing and they maintain it. And if they don't have their own housing, some have been reunited with their families. At one point, they were estranged from each other.
My question would be, you show that 43% of your clients are ex-offenders. How many of the 43%, what's the percentage coming straight from prison? Do you have any idea?
I'm going to take from 2018, out of the 40 women, maybe, I'm not, 10, 15 women.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If the state of Missouri, you think the state of Missouri has an adequate training for women before they leave prison to deal with these children's issues, or you know, you're a mom, you know,
Yeah.
this is how you know, you're a mother now, this is how you're supposed to treat the baby. Is
But no,
anything
that's
wrong?
not, I don't think that's going to be accomplished in prison. That's why when they come to Our Ladies
Yeah.
Inn, that is something that we give them in parenting classes.
Right.
To show them how to be a mom. A lot of the women that come from incarceration are separated from their children because they
I
are
understand that.
incarcerated.
Right.
So with the new baby, those principles of parenting are injected as part of her goal plan to succeed when she leaves Our Ladies Inn. So we prepare the mom for parenting when she leaves.
You have a rough crowd.
We do have a rough crowd.
It's 38% domestic violence.
Yeah.
You know, 43% ex-offenders, 53% suffer from substance abuse. So
Yes.
you're up against it, and I applaud your efforts. I mean, it's just glad you're out there.
And thank you.
No.
And the whole ordeal is you want to stop that so that it doesn't trickle down to the next generation.
Right.
And I think that's why we put as much as we do into it. Just save the mom, save the child.
Yeah. One child at a time.
One child at a time.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Thank you. Do you guys, we'll do one more and then maybe we'll take a couple minute break.
Hello, my name is Rosie and I'm the programs manager at Turning Point over in Warren County in Warrenton. So our mission is to provide safety, shelter, and stabilizing support to survivors of domestic and sexual violence, and that includes adult sex trafficking. Our vision is a just culture of nonviolence where people are equally valued and where healthy relationships and self-worth flourish. We try to make a lot of our decisions and our programming framework around the values of safety, support, and empowerment. We recognize that our advocacy efforts need to be empowering and really walking alongside survivors and helping them to determine their goals and ultimately giving them the tools that will help them advocate for themselves. So my plan for my allotted time is to go over our different programmatic silos and then kind of where we see Turning Point in the next 3 to 5 years and then do some questions. So Turning Point has a 24/7 hotline. Every day of the year we have staff on site 365 days. So if people need to call on Thanksgiving to talk, if they need shelter on Christmas, we're always there. The hotline is answered by trained staff. They complete the hotline assessment and then consult with a second staff member always about bringing a client into shelter. We believe that it's important for them to consult with a second person because we're making really important decisions and wanting to make sure that we're thinking about all of the pieces of the puzzle that may go along with someone's life. Then, of course, we provide emergency shelter. Right now we have a 30-bed shelter. And I'll talk about our shelter improvement plan in just a little bit. Right now, everyone is in community-style living, so we have rooms with lots of bunk beds. We try to keep at least one room a single ladies' room, which would be a single woman who doesn't bring any kiddos with her, because it can be very jarring to move into a room with bunk beds and kids and moms if you're not used to being around kids. But we always keep families together, of course, and try to put people where it makes most sense. Besides that, the shelter is very much a home. There's kitchen, multiple bathrooms, laundry room, playroom, playground, all of that good stuff to try to make people feel as home as possible in that situation. All of our residential clients are assigned an individual advocate who they work with one-on-one to help define those goals that we talked about earlier. And that advocate really goes with that client and says, okay, if you make move A, that might affect 1, 2, and 3. How do we need to think about this? So kind of showing her, where are we going to go in the long run? What are your goals? What little bitty goals do we need to make sure are in place before we can accomplish the bigger goal? While in shelter, all of the food's provided. Clients sign up for different chores each week. They all sign up to make dinner a different night, do dishes a different night, do house laundry, all of that good stuff. So they're really pitching in and taking ownership of living there. And then all hygiene items are provided, any clothing that we may need. We have a voucher program with Agape Thrift Store, so our clients can go in and if they need to get a winter coat or snowshoes or something right now especially, they can go and get that taken care of. We have our well-being program, which has support groups, counseling, and then substance abuse prevention. We have a variety of support groups every day of the week that may range from healthy communication to a boundaries support group, to healthy relationships, employment support groups. We just started a kids support group, which we call Kids Club, and that kind of rotates between fun activities and then also some more serious time for kids to process a little bit of the situation that they're in. And then that's a great time to give moms a little bit of downtime in shelter to work on their own goals, or if they want to attend a support group and not have to worry about childcare, they can do that. Our counseling is provided by a licensed counselor, and she works with adults and kiddos through their experiences. And then we also have a substance abuse prevention advocate. We've noticed very much in the past probably 3 to 5 years that a lot of our clients are coming in with struggles surrounding substance abuse. Perhaps they've turned to substances as a way to cope with their intense traumas. So while we recognize that that is a coping skill, we want to help them find other healthier, more long-term coping skills. So our substance abuse prevention advocate is trained in Smart Recovery, and she hosts weekly, or I think bi-weekly Smart Recovery meetings. And then also if a client has interest in doing a detox or an inpatient or outpatient program, she'll get them all hooked up with that. We provide court and general advocacy. While we don't have any licensed lawyers on staff, we do have court advocates who can say, in my experience, this judge typically handles a case this way. This is what it's going to look like when you're in court. I'll sit with you and provide that emotional support, which is really important because it can be very intimidating to go into a courtroom for the first time and need to face your abuser in court right there. We also have an economic empowerment program. Many of our clients haven't had the opportunities to develop a financial literacy ability because they haven't had the opportunity to have their own checking account or perhaps haven't been allowed to work outside of the home. So clients meet one-on-one with our financial empowerment advocate to design their budget, talk about their own plans, say this makes sense for me long-term, and then that economic empowerment advocate also does group workshops, and then a lot of DIY or cost-saving things. So how to make your own laundry detergent, how to make your own soap. So when clients move out of shelter, they kind of have those tips and tricks. We've started a new program under economic empowerment. I don't know why I keep saying environment. Under economic empowerment, that teaches a lot of home and vehicle skills. So if their tire would go flat on the side of the road, they wouldn't need to call anyone, perhaps call their abuser, because they know their abuser would come and help, right? Because that would be another opportunity for them to see their victim. That way she could just change that tire on her own and find some sort of empowerment in that. We do awareness campaigns, so going into community settings, library meetings, all of that good stuff to kind of further our mission. And then ancillary services. So we have our client information coordinator who helps keep record of all of our data and identify trends. Looking forward, Turning Point has received a community development block grant, which will help us expand the shelter, which will be great because right now we're a little bit cramped. And so instead of having 3 large rooms, we're going to have 6 smaller rooms, each with bunk beds still, but it'll be much more private. Each room is going to have their own bathroom, which everyone's very excited about. We'll have a quiet space for homework time for the kiddos, a library, a game room, a new back deck for some quiet reflection or meditation time. So we're really looking forward to that, and I think that space is going to help us further our mission in a variety of ways. So that's all that I have. What questions can I answer?
You're anticipating 190 women and children next year.
Yes.
How long do they stay?
So after they've been in shelter for 3 weeks, then we do an extension process every 2 weeks where they fill out an extension application, and it lists the goals that they've worked on in the past 2 weeks, and then what goals they're going to work on for the next 2 weeks and how they're going to accomplish those goals. So every 2 weeks we do a case management review, and our philosophy is very much if the client is putting in the work and wanting to succeed, we will be there right along with them to help them. So we've had some families that have just been hit really hard. A couple of years ago we had a family who was mom and then 4 kids. One of her kids got pregnant, then there was complications with the pregnancy, so they were with us for about 7 or 8 months because things just kept coming up for that family. So after those 3 weeks, then we evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Can you unpack the budget? So with the items that you're asking, particularly with rental assistance, mortgage, and utility assistance, what is that used for?
Sure. So that's with our economic empowerment program. So that may be a client moves out and then something happens and she loses her job and she's not able to make rent. So she knows she can call us, and as long as we have a history of case management with her, then we can be kind of that supportive system for her while she works to get back on track.
So it's for former clients?
Yes, so for current clients, yeah.
So about 15% of your clients are from St. Charles County.
Yes.
Do you find that they're calling that far out, reaching to you because you're farther away from the abuser, or are you getting like referrals from other shelters or other places?
Sure. So I think we are mainly seeing people who want to leave the St. Charles area, who say that it's too easy to find me. I've tried to stay before in the area and I'm just not able to do it safely. I need to kind of uproot and restart over. Yeah.
Your application is the only one I see that uses the word sex trafficking.
Yes.
And I think last year, I don't know if you were here, I don't think you were.
No, I wasn't.
But the lady was describing, and this is all new to me, I live down in, St. Charles County.
Sure.
By Wellman Springs, so, so she was describing that, these truck stops and things of that nature out there in Warren County are good for, trying to pick up underage girls or whatever,
Yeah.
and you were trying to service that or help that along. Is that still the case, or can you kind of expound on that?
Yeah, so that,
Educate me to this.
right.
So that very much is the case. In the past year, we served 6 human trafficking victims from the area. And in our experience, we found that it's usually intimate partners who have introduced them to sex trafficking or their own family members, particularly their parents. So they've been groomed from a young age, so it can be really hard to get out of that system, especially if that's the only system you've operated within. But truck stops, especially along Highway 70, can be a prime location for people to be victimized.
And that still continues up to today?
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
is this still going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I never really knew that.
Yeah, it's very hidden because, of course, the way to get away with it is for it to
Right.
not be seen. So there's a lot of power and control dynamics in that. We see a lot of our human trafficking victims have been tattooed with their pimp's name
Like
to show,
branded?
right, to show ownership. Exactly. So it's a lot of physical and psychological trauma to unpack there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess we can take just a 5-minute break here. All right, we skipped over Cindy's oath of office, so we'll just do that real quick and get that out of the way, and then we'll jump to the next presentation.
I, Cynthia Cyber, do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Missouri, the Charter of St. Charles County, and the laws of the United States, State of Missouri, and St. Charles County, and that will faithfully demean myself in the office to which I am appointed on the 8th day of July, 2019.
All right, our president, Mike, gave each of you one of these. I think you have it. Just a little thing about our board. My name is Esther Angelos, and for those of you that don't know, that I'm with the Tri-County Citizens Advisory Board to Probation and Parole. We're an organization we've been working for about the last 25 years with District 17 Probation Parole here in St. Charles. We're a unique organization in that all of our members are volunteers. No one gets paid. We work out of the Probation and Parole office on not veterans, but the other side of the highway, and at their office, they let us use their office. We meet once a month, first Thursday of the month. And since all board members volunteer their time, all the money that we earn through fundraising, getting donations, and grants goes directly into helping keep our community safe by helping the people on probation parole stay the path that they need to stay on in order to complete their probation parole successfully. We do so by helping those indigent clients that are under supervision of the St. Charles County Office of Probation and Parole. We also do work with Warren and Lincoln County offices, but this grant money only goes to those out of St. Charles. The board supports the goal of the Missouri Department of Corrections that promotes public safety by helping the men and women on probation or parole lead productive lives within our community, not having to go back into the system itself. The Tri-County Citizens Advisory Board and the Missouri Department of Corrections realize that it often takes many elements within a community to help them be successful. At the present time, there are over 60,000 men and women on probation in the state of Missouri. We have approximately a little over 2,000 of these people living in St. Charles County. Some of these people are your neighbors, who made a bad choice and find themselves on probation. If the men and women released on parole or placed on probation lack the appropriate and necessary skills to become productive, to stay within the community, they have a greater potential to pose a threat to those that are in the public. And of course, they're at risk of reoffending, and for those that are on parole, they wind up going to jail, or those that were in jail go back. The community safety is a major concern of this board. We help create safer communities by creating the opportunities for these individuals to be successful by offering them a helping hand when it is needed. That is why we are asking for your assistance in helping our indigent clients. We are asking for even more this year than we have in the past because the need has grown in terms of indigent clients. Society is typically sympathetic to those considered less fortunate, but unfortunately those individuals who have been involved in the criminal justice system are not as well regarded. The Tri-County Citizens Advisory Board is committed to the belief that these individuals should be shown some of the same compassion and caring as other community members when it is needed. The indigent men and women we serve often need support from the community to become and remain rehabilitated and productive members of our area. Unfortunately, due to their low income, many cannot pay for the numerous court-mandated programs and treatment, and also meet their personal and family needs. In 2019, we have already made 98 grants. That is nearly twice the amount of grants that we made last year. Approximately 80% of those clients that we gave grants to, not everybody on probation parole, but those that we gave grants to, are unemployed or underemployed. If the help they receive from us keeps them from reoffending, then we have met our main goal. And that is how we determine success, and that's whether or not they go to jail or return to jail. The maximum grant amount that we can give to a person per year is $600. This makes it possible for us, obviously, to serve more people. We have approximately, I think there was 13 clients that got more than one grant this year, and that's because the probation officer, only asked for partial funds to start with to see how they did, to see that they continued and went to the counseling services, that they found a job. And then when they did do those things and they still needed help, then they came back to us until they reached the 600 mark, at which time they couldn't come to us for any more help. Our main grant proposals focus on mental health issues, obviously substance abuse evaluations, treatment, medications, counseling, as well as help in maintaining housing and utility services. This year, we found a large jump in temporary housing, in other words, a hotel that we had to pay for, or we didn't have to, but we paid for, because a lot of those that are coming out of the jail are homeless. They have no place to go. They have no family member that wants to take them back. They've given them all the tries they're going to give them. So obviously they are homeless. And some of these people are waiting to go back to their state that their families are in. But unfortunately, it takes anywhere from 2 weeks to a month to get permission from the new state to send them home. So a lot of those people do not have a safety net or a place to stay until they go back to their home state. All these services are essential for these individuals so that employment can be obtained and maintained. Obviously, if they're still doing drugs, or they're schizophrenic and they can't get their medicines, they can't get employment. They're not going to be employed. So that just increases the chance that they are going to steal or do what they need to do in order to get by. Summertime, it's easier because they just camp out. They camp outside. But in the wintertime, in this kind of weather, they can't. Also, it's important to remember that by providing assistance to our clientele, we also help their children, because they have shown that children of people on probation and parole are 6 times more likely to become our next generation of offenders, because that's the example that they have and that they see. If their parents succeed, get off probation, find employment, get help, get off the drugs, then they're less likely to fall into that same, we know it's a cycle, to keep that cycle going. During the year, we hold basically 3 fundraisers, and we raise anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 a year. Unfortunately, we don't do a whole lot better than that because we are a volunteer group and we are a small group. But from those 3 fundraisers, that's usually what we get, we try and get. And unfortunately, we have applied to many organizations for help. And the letter comes back and it reads about the same. You don't really fall into our, what's the right word, who we want to help, because they are, again, probationers or parolees, and so we do get a bunch of those. We have already written grants this year for over $20,000. So as you can, and that's for people that, I would say, I haven't gone over the figures for sure yet, but at least 85% of the people that we give grants to, and we gave 98, like I said, 98 grants, 85% of them do not reoffend. Or they finish their programs, they do what they can do. Now, not all of them find jobs, but that's not, because of their, they don't have the skills, or they lack a car. Those are not the kind of things that we can actually help them with. We can help put a roof over their head and provide them with the counseling they need, but other than that, that's all that we're able to do. We are asking for your assistance so we can continue to help our clientele succeed and remain productive within the community. I assure you that the cost to send them to jail or prison is a lot more than it is to help them stay in their own homes and be, work and do those types of things. Your monetary support will help our clients have a better chance at being successful in St. Charles County. At the same time, St. Charles area here, at the same time you help promote public safety, which benefits all of St. Charles County residents and taxpayers. I would like to close with a quote, this time from Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Any questions? Anything at all?
I have two brief. What is the majority, when you hand out a grant to one of the men, what's the majority reason of so doing so? What?
You mean what does it go towards? Over 50% of all the grants are for mental health. I'm sorry. And I put substance abuse under mental health, and it really is separate. Substance abuse,
So
treatment.
Like, medicine,
We don't do as much of that because there are other organizations that are available for the clients to get. Now, not that we don't, but we don't find we're doing as much. We're talking about, we have a large heroin population, cocaine.
So there's a grant for counseling?
Yes, and for treatment, for programs like, BIP, Batterers Intervention Programs, anger management programs, REACT, that's alcohol, I think. There's REACT, there's SATOP, there's, and there's just regular 101 or group counseling.
Right. And Esther, you mentioned that this year doubled over last year, or
The number of people that we gave grants to doubled. Now, the reason we could do that is obviously we didn't give everybody $600, and we had more money available to us this year. Next year we lose a grant because Lutheran Foundation is only for 3 years, and we've just finished we're finishing our 3rd year, so we will lose some grant money. So we will not be able to give as many next year unless we can pick up some grant.
Lastly, is the population the prison population that resides in St. Charles County coming back to St., is that increasing or staying the same?
Believe it or not, I looked at that from last year's totals, and it did not get greater.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it remained about the same, maybe a few less. Now, the Department of Corrections has started a brand-new program, a brand-new way to deal with offenders. Obviously, what they've been doing has not worked. Okay, I mean, it wasn't working. People that were reoffending, people going back into jail. The substance abuse is causing issues, in everything, in their life, affecting children. It's not, it used to be what was just the offender, maybe his wife who left him anyway, but, those kinds of things. Now, we have children being taken away from families, those kinds of things, and then kids, of course, being trafficked and all that by different kinds of things. But no, it's about the same, a number of people on probation or parole. I don't know about the number that are incarcerated, how that's changed. Just the ones that come back out to District 17. We're only talking one district, in the state of Missouri. We're not, St. Louis has got more districts. The city's got their own districts. St. Charles County's got their own. We're just talking about from the bridge to, I think it's Troy, maybe, or Wentzville, somewhere. That's that little area. Then after that, there's more.
Right.
So I have absolutely no idea how many are really and are pretty close to us.
Thank you.
Yes. Is the number of people that are releasing from prison back to St. Charles County increasing? Do you think that's part of the reason why you doubled your numbers?
Well, just by the number that we have on probation or parole is stayed the same. So, but what I don't know though is how many of them are probationers and how many of them are parolees. Probationers have never done jail time.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Only the parolees have done the jail time. Now, are the more of our offenders probationers or parolees? I'm pretty sure they're probationers, not the parolees.
And I think too, for being there, in courthouse, the judges have started leaning more towards probation rather than jail time.
Well, sure, because they say jail's not
that doesn't help
fixing
them
it.
if they're not a violent offender.
Right.
The chief probation officer told us last week that they have over 2,000 probation and parolees under their supervision in St. Charles alone. And these are people who, the ones that come to us, can't pay for the services that the judge has ordered them to go through. And so if we don't give it to them, they wind up on probation longer.
Or they go to jail.
They go back to jail.
They go to jail. If you don't pay, if you don't do what you need to do, if you don't pay the money you need to pay, you go back to court, they give you some more bills and add it to what you owe, and they put you, a lot of times they just put you back on probation, extend your probation, and you're right where you were at the beginning.
In a bigger hole.
Yes, and we've got many of the probationers are just saying, after they've been on probation for a while, they're just going back to court and they're going, put me in jail. I at least get 3 meals a day, see the doctor, have warm clothes, and a bed to sleep in.
My second part of my question for you is, do you refer the probation officers, I guess, not necessarily your board, refer them to other agencies too for?
Technically, we're supposed to be one of the last groups they bring up to us, okay? For the counseling and stuff, that doesn't happen. But for things like medicine, for things like help getting jobs and all that, there are other organizations that they use, Connections to Success. We're part of that. I think it's called 280.
Probation officer sends them to us if they need money to pay for services or like assessment and treatment for their drug addiction or BIP or whatever. But they refer them to other agencies for other things. We're just the referral. They have their own form that they send us, and everybody comes to us from a probation officer.
Right, and I did find out something new last night is the people that are on probation that are on the waiting lists to get into treatment, if a heroin addict comes out, guess who gets to go in first? the heroin addict. So those people that have been waiting for months to get into treatment, free treatment programs that the state and other offer, are pushed farther down the line because they look at heroin. And it is worse, obviously, but heroin addiction takes precedent, or cocaine takes precedent over marijuana and maybe some meth and stuff, but we also know
And
that...
alcohol.
And alcohol, yeah. But we also know that most of these heroin addicts started down here. So if we could stop them down here, they wouldn't get up here to begin with. It's a very vicious, not in the last 25 years, that was law enforcement before I volunteered on this. It's a very vicious cycle, and I wish I even had a hint as to what the solution would be. Until we do, then we're just going to help as many as we can get the treatment they need. And like I say, most of the ones that we send to treatment finish their treatment. Now, once they get off probation, there's no monitoring. There's no, they're no longer in the system. We can't contact them, and all that. As it is, we only know them by numbers. I mean, if we had to tell you about somebody, it would be a number when we, names and stuff. That's all privacy things that we can't do. Anything else? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Schneider, and I am with Bridgeway's Women's Center, the domestic violence shelter here in St. Charles County. Over the last several years, you may have heard we merged with Preferred Family Healthcare. So, we're a division of Preferred Family Healthcare, but we are still the Bridgeway Women's Center. So I feel like a little like a fish out of water because I've only been to one board meeting. I recently started providing supervision and management to the Women's Center. I was previously affiliated or working in our substance use disorder program, but I have a long history of working with survivors of domestic violence throughout the state. So I was really honored when they asked me to kind of help step up to provide oversight to the Women's Center and the Sexual Assault Center. So what we do I'll start with an overview of what we do in our services. So we provide emergency shelter to women and children who find themselves homeless because someone in their home is hurting them. They could be experiencing physical, emotional, psychological, financial, or sexual abuse. They might be experiencing several forms of these types of abuse or all of these types of abuse. But what makes us unique is that we offer emergency shelter to people who are in immediate danger. Our program is comprised of 7 components, 7 different kind of service lines. We offer crisis intervention, hotline, and that's a 24-hour hotline. Hospital-based advocacy, we go to the hospital and provide support, emotional support resources to women who have gone to the emergency room because they have an injury due to intimate partner violence or because they've been sexually assaulted. We also provide emergency shelter. We provide residential support services, outreach services, and community education. And I'm going to talk more in depth about those residential support services here in a little bit. But a woman or a family who enters our shelter will be provided a continuum of care. She will receive case management and life skills training, individual therapy, support groups, individualized safety planning, parenting support, and legal and court advocacy. She will be connected with community resources that will really help build her a network of support that will help her obtain independent living. When she is ready to begin living on her own, she has the option also to continue services with us. So we provide outreach services to people that aren't living in our shelter, and so every family that comes into our shelter will also have that opportunity to continue case management and continue therapy or support groups, which really helps to build the resiliency and help them maintain and sustain safe and secure housing beyond our shelter. We do follow-up calls at various points after someone has left our shelter. So I think it's every 30 days. We will reach out to them. We will see how they're doing. We'll see what other services we can provide if they're not already continuing with outreach services. And we will do that for up to a year. So that, again, really strengthens the family's capacity to maintain independent living and fills a much needed gap that we see here in St. Charles County for its most highest risk and vulnerable residents. Over the last couple of years, we've noticed an increase in domestic violence incidents. So in 2018, there was about 1,000, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reports that in St. Charles County there was 1,577 incidents, but this was 134 more incidents than in 2016. So also there's a need for affordable housing and transportation and affordable childcare in this area. So our goal is to really connect our consumers, the women that we and the families that we serve, to connect them with those resources that are going to help lower those barriers so they can obtain and maintain independent living. We collaborate with many other organizations, such as Coordinated Entry. They have become really, really significant into helping bridge some gaps with our clients and getting into housing from our shelter. We very much work with the Crisis Nursery. They have become a very strong partner in helping our clients. We also work with Compass Healthcare and many other organizations in the community, local ministries. We just had a woman who over the summer was able to go into her own apartment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about her later as well, but we had a local ministry who was able to donate beds, which is so essential for somebody starting an apartment. She had 2 children, and they donated beds and some other essential pieces of furniture. So we have a lot of connections out there that really help build up our clients' resource base. So in 2018, we provided shelter to 75 women and 61 children, but we were also unable to serve 45 women and children for emergency shelter due to lack of bed openings at the time that they called on the hotline and asked for shelter. As of September 30th of this year, we have provided shelter to 71 women and 29 children. So 2 of the things that we really work on, and we kind of call them milestones or steps that we like to achieve with our clients when working with them, is individualized safety plan and, again, connection to community resources. So we measure safety planning. That's been one of the outcomes that we typically are measuring. So and I want to talk about that a little bit more in depth, just because it is such an important service that we offer to people who are escaping abusive relationships. So I've been working with survivors for almost 20 years now, and I can tell you that I've heard stories over and over again about a woman getting to a safe place, maybe completed a shelter program, went on to independent living, and then somehow the abuser finds them back. Okay, and so that might happen for a lot of different reasons. But the thing that ends up happening is the loss of housing. The abuser will do many different things to jeopardize their housing, or if they haven't found long-term housing yet, but they were still in a safer place than they were, whether that be the shelter or the place they moved out after shelter, and they're still working on a more long-term plan. The abuser has now jeopardized any of those plans that have been set in place, the progress that they've been able to make in their time away from the abuse. So that could be because they end up squatting with the family, with the woman in the family, and that's not okay because he's not on the lease. That would be one example. So loss of housing is definitely an outcome when an abuser ends up tracking them down. So that's why it's so important that we are safety planning with our clients. And so we start that at Hotline. We safety plan as to how to get to the shelter in a safe way. So they can't come directly to the shelter because we don't know if the abuser might be following them. So there's a safe place that they go to first that's public, and then they call us, and then we continue to safety plan, and then they come. So we safety plan when they get that first job, or when they leave the shelter to start getting connected with some of the community resources. We safety plan when they obtain an order of protection, how to use that order of protection as a way to increase their safety. Sometimes getting an order of protection isn't in their best interest, so we safety plan around that as well. But so we're safety planning with them. At the transition session, which is our last session, our case management session with them too, given the details of their new living situation. So every time they change their living situation or they add another detail to their living situation, like a job or child care or school, there's safety planning that has to be done around those elements. So one of our outcomes around safety planning is that 98%, or in the past, since 2016, 98% of our participants have completed a safety plan with an advocate, and 89% reported they know more about and have developed their own ways to plan for their safety. So helping them develop those strategies, that way of thinking, constantly always thinking about their safety. And then another one of our outcomes that I would like to highlight is that since 2016, 87% of our participants reported that they know more about community resources than they did before receiving our services. And so in the request that we applied for from CAB, those are the two outcomes that we will be measuring. So we anticipate that 90% will have a safety plan in place by the end of their interaction with an advocate. And we also anticipate that 75% of our consumers will have accurate information about support services available in the community that they might need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The money that we have applied for goes towards shelter operations, so it helps provide electricity, water, food, those kinds of very essential, basic living needs for our participants, for the women and children at the shelter. We anticipate that it will the money that we asked for will be able to serve 75 shelter residents, and so before I wrap things up, I would just kind of like to share a couple of stories because that's kind of what I know the most about and that I feel like is the most important to relay. So over the summer, I think I had mentioned we had accepted a woman with 2 children. Her daughter was in her early teens and her son was around 3 years old. And one of the things that we noticed with the son is that he was already emulating the behaviors of his father, who he had observed abusing his mother. She utilized services with the crisis nursery. We were able to utilize some services through coordinated entry with her as well. But when she called the hotline, she already had a job, and so she had really never thought of trying to go to a shelter because she's like, well, I have income and I have a job. But that shelter became such a necessary piece of her escape plan to get away. So, and their house was actually being condemned And she had tried to make moves to get them out sooner. Again, not really thinking of shelter as an option, but he was, again, kind of jeopardizing, or because of his controlling nature, wasn't allowing her to follow through with steps that she wanted to follow through with in order to get them to a safer place. So the condition of the house was very poor. So when she came, with the help of our shelter, she was able to maintain employment, which was really essential to her, and save up enough money to move into an apartment on her own. She was able to obtain an order of protection. She started working with Legal Services of Eastern Missouri to start divorce paperwork. That was a really key element, I think, that will help her in the long term. And so she was able to move into a nearby apartment complex. And like I said before, she got financial assistance through coordinated entry to help for the deposit. A local ministry gave her beds and some other furniture items that allowed her and her children to move into a new safe home for them. Another quick story, I actually accepted a woman into shelter about a month ago who had been living in her car, and she had been in the car for about 4 days. When she called us, she was tired, she was stressed, she was ridden with anxiety. She was kind of in that waffling point of, I don't know what to do, which is really common with people who've experienced a lot of trauma. So they are not able to make decisions very, very quickly, and so not knowing what to do. Should I continue to stick this out? Who should I call? Should I return? She decided to give us a call. So like I said, she had been living out of her car for the past few days, but her live-in boyfriend of 18 years had abused her right before she left. And so when she came in, she was shared with us that she wasn't sure who to turn to for support. Because of the abuse, she was very isolated from her family and friends. She was really grateful for our help. So what we've noticed with her is that she's definitely suffering from post-traumatic stress, and she's been having difficulty staying focused on tasks. But what has been really integral in her obtaining her goals and her progress so far is that we were able to connect her with mental health services in St. Charles County, and also help her get that first prescription paid for. And we have noticed such a big difference in her ability to stay focused and be productive and complete tasks now that she has the medication that she needs to be able to do those things. So she's began applying for jobs. Her mood is much more stable. Her emotions are more regulated. Her focus has increased, and we are really hopeful for her because she's very motivated. She has a positive attitude. She contributes really positively to the community in our shelter, and her goal is to obtain safe and secure housing in St. Charles County. I think that is all I have for you guys.
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, maybe you can't answer this, but it's just thinking it through. When a woman comes to your shelter and she's been abused, battered by her live-in boyfriend or husband or whoever, once you get them settled down, do you say, okay, you want to go to the police? Or is there legal advice, or do you kind of walk them through that? I mean, the man needs to be punished, or at least investigated. I mean, depending on the story here, but
Right.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure. We definitely walk through all of her options with her. So she might want to report the abuse. She might want to file for an order of protection, and she might not want to do those things because she doesn't feel safe to do those things. I mean, sometimes the police have been involved, and with victims, they don't necessarily always get the best response from law enforcement. So there may be a distrust there. But we really tried to help her figure out what's best for her, because everybody's situation is unique and different, and so there's so many different individual factors that play a role in her, that person's particular story that's going to help her figure out what is the safest route to go.
The reason I say that, because she's gonna go back into the same environment, to the same man who doesn't have any consequences placed against him.
Right.
I mean.
Right, so one of the things that's happening in St. Charles County, and we're a big part of this, is there's a domestic violence task force. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that, but we are partnering with the prosecutor's office, other local non-for-profits who are invested in helping survivors and children who are victims of domestic violence. So I think some local schools are involved, police officers, and so I really think there's some movement going on in St. Charles County to focus more on the batterer and accountability on the batterer, rather not like the same question that's always gets asked, like, well, why doesn't she leave, or why does she go back? When really it's illegal. It's illegal to physically abuse somebody, right? So where's that accountability piece? And I think there has been some recent pretty significant domestic violence cases in St. Charles County over the last year, some homicides as well, and so there is a task force that's been formed, and like I said, the prosecutor's office is involved. Different law enforcement precincts are sending their detectives. We're involved. I believe the Crisis Nursery is involved. Other kind of local organizations around that work with survivors are involved.
Seems like there's a lot more to be done, but
there might.
applaud your efforts.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
I'm Pam Struckoff from St. Joe Community Care Service. Actually, the St. Joe Community Care Service. It's a mouthful, I know. There's two of us today because Kathy deals more with outcomes than I do and those kind of reports. So I'm the program person. So I try to stay away from that stuff. She's a little crazy with it. So, no, I do. So again, Pam and Kathy from St. Joe Community, and our mission is to serve those in crisis and prevent homelessness and hunger. We have been around 38 years this year, so we serve the St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren County areas. We serve anybody in the community who is at or below 50% of the area median income. So for a family of 4, that would be about $40,000. Considering most of the people that we serve are single mothers, and most are actually below 30% of the area median income, which would be about $24,000 a year. So that would mean for the moms and the people that we serve, they would have to work about an average of 70 hours a week at $11.75 an hour, which is not normally the starting wage of the people that we work with, to afford a 3-bedroom apartment in St. Charles. And that's a fair market rate apartment. That isn't the $1,300 apartments that we do have in this area. Housing is very hard in this area to get. We have 5 main programs at St. Joe Community Care Service. We have a housing program. We are housers in this community. We have a children and family development program where we provide case management and other things. We have a street outreach program where we're on the streets daily with the people in this community and in Warren and Lincoln. We have a food pantry. We have an adopt a family program, and during disaster time, we have a disaster recovery program, which we are in the midst of a disaster right now, although it's not shaping up to be too big of a disaster from what I'm seeing. Our programs are supposed to work together to provide some wraparound services. So if somebody's getting case management, they can get food pantry to work on their food costs to be able to pay their bills.
This October, we took 977 phone calls into our main line for assistance. We spent over $25,000 in housing assistance, and that was on 45 different households. We work closely with coordinated entry. Even we lend staff to coordinated entry. We believe it's important for us to be integral in the process because it just is. It's important to us to know what's going on and trends in the community. But also since the inception of coordinated entry in January of 2018, we have received over 40% of the referrals for case management, deposit, rental assistance, or street outreach services. So we receive the bulk of the referrals. So it's important for us to know the trends and what's going on. I'm gonna let Kathy say her part now.
Okay. Basically, I'm talking a little bit more about the application that we submitted. In the past, we've been fortunate to receive funding from the CAB board for years. I've been around 11 plus, and I know it was several years even before that, so thank you so much for that, your past and hopefully continued support. We are continuing to ask for the same type of assistance, the rent, the utilities, temporary shelter, in our case it's hotel motel vouchers. We also, in the indigent portion, we asked for transportation, car repair, and our gas card we use that for. We have also submitted an application for the CDBG Urban County funds. Basically everything that Pam says applies to that as well. We're still the same organization, yep. So we'll save time on all that. And basically the funds are the same. We're still asking for the rent and utilities and that as well. It's very helpful that we have your funding for several reasons. One, we do get funding from a lot of sources. We're recognized on a state level for all of our best practices and things. In fact, sometimes they utilize our practices in training other organizations across the state. So we are very appreciative of that. But with that being said, your funding allows us to get extra federal and state funding in. It shows that we have the local support of our government and our community, as well as just allows us to leverage funding so we can bring in more funding. So, and as far as behalf of the client, it also goes for a lot of our other funding sources, or I'm going to say this, we love the CAB funding and we love the CDBG Urban County funding. There's a little few less strings attached, and it allows us to help people that sometimes don't always fall right into that exact category that some of those other funders are looking for. 90%, if not more, of our people that we serve, we only usually serve if they have a shut-off or an eviction notice. But there's still a small percentage. They're on that verge, and there's other circumstances that just don't fit in the box real well, and don't fit all the other check marks for those other funders. And with the CAB funds, and the CDBG funds, we can usually find a fit for that and use those funds to help them. We have helped the homeless and for prevention, because we do have an outreach program, so we do help homeless people. Your funds are often matched with other funds, so we're not taking them all out of one pot. Your funds just offer a lot of flexibility, and we appreciate that. As far as what I handed out, those are just our outcomes. We kind of changed our outcomes from years past. This was the first year, or 18, I'm sorry, was the first year we started tracking those outcomes. They're a little new. We're kind of online with more of the performance benchmarks as far as on a national level and also as our community level. So we're hoping, they're probably going to be tweaked. They're probably not totally perfect. We're still working on a better way, making sure we're trying to track them in the most efficient way possible, so they're as accurate as they can be. So that's kind of what I handed out. I know we list 2 outcomes in the grant application, but those are some other outcomes that we collect as well. So I, again, appreciate all the support we get from you guys, as well as all the agencies in the room. As far as your financial support and just your time, your volunteerism, and so forth for our agencies as well as our clients. So with that being said.
I have a little story. So most people do not think of homeless when they think of people about to be homeless. They do not think of 93-year-old women. But a 93-year-old woman was referred to us through coordinated entry for case management and for rental assistance. When we got in there to the apartment, we found that she was blockading herself in her bedroom and putting knives in the door because her son, who was a drug addict, was stealing her money and trying to harm her. We were able to move her out of that apartment. We were lucky enough to be named the lead referral agency for a senior living community in Twin Oaks in Wentzville, and we were able to move her into that facility. She's 93 years old. She had 4 children. This is the only living child that she still had, was this young man who was very abusive. And we used these funds for deposit for her to move in there because it wasn't a big deposit, but she needed some other stuff too, so we used this and combined it with some other things, and now she is happy and she's healthy, and we've had her on caseload for about 7 months, or we just closed her case, and she's doing well. She loves the shuttle, she goes to the store, she goes to the bingo, she just loves it. So we don't often think of that age group of being homeless, but she was right there on the edge, and she was being abused, and she was scared. So she's good now. So thank you.
How old was her son, if she's 93?
Oh, he was in his 50s. Yeah.
Old enough to know better.
Old enough to know better. And we took her to the bank and made police reports because he was stealing our money. And, we were able to walk her through all that. But it was not a good situation.
How did she get to the point where she figured out where to call to get help? That's what
She has had a neighbor who had gotten utility assistance from us and called, and then the way our process works is if they're within 14 days of eviction or if they're homeless, we do have them go through coordinated entry to get a referral to our services, because we just have to have some kind of clearinghouse. We get a lot of phone calls, and once that phone call came in, it was assigned to a case manager just because of the seriousness of the case. And so word is out, they'll do this for you. Well, that's not always how it works, but in this situation, it was bad. So we don't think of that age group as being in that, but she's a sweet old lady too.
And I have one other thing to add. I forgot to add about Project CARES. We also had applied for that funding in the past. We've used it for hotel motel assistance with the focus on men. On occasion, we might have used it for what if we had a really, I guess, real serious case. We might have usually like a woman with children or something, but mostly all the time, all that goes to our homeless men that we serve. And so we continue to request funding for that as well. So.
I have a question. When you talk about, you break out your clients, percentage of clients, and you provide a wide range of services, when I total up the percentage of clients, it only totals up to about 46%. Will those other 54%?
They're probably not in any of those demographics, I'm assuming, because you probably just don't have it. It's just probably, they don't fall in any of those. It's just,
So that would just be,
I don't want to say the common person, but ones that don't fall in any of those. Just like the one that, is 21 days of eviction. They're not an ex-offender, they're not homeless, they're not disabled. They're out of work or whatever. So.
that's good. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Do you guys still have that program where you go out in your car and try to find the homeless people?
Yeah, we have a street outreach program.
I always thought that was great.
We just finished a 3-year grant with Missouri Foundation for Health. That program started in 2016, and they were instrumental in helping us build the program to a level where we're able to sustain it. And we're out on the streets 4 days a week in St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren County. We also have a medic from SSM. They are still our partner in that program. They go with us.
Is it every week of the year or just?
Yes, every week of the year.
Really?
Yes, year round, and it's a great program. We offer basic survival supplies. We cannot offer shelter to all of these people. This is a mostly male population, and there's a lot of baggage that comes with that male population. But we offer basic survival supplies, tents, sleeping bags, food, socks, coats. We've got coats in the winter and hand warmers and hats and gloves. And in the summer, it's bug spray and sunscreen. And we
We offer them medication assistance. We've been able to offer them dental and medical assistance. That was through the Missouri Foundation for Health grant. Like I said, they really helped us build that program. And it also showed us what we didn't need, what we thought we need when we started that grant. And we moved to streamlining that program. We thought we would need a team in Warren. Well, we found out very quickly that we don't need our own team in Warren. We can double the Lincoln and Warren team together and have one person doing that instead of having 3 separate teams. So it's been very successful. I think last year they made over 700 touches on the street, and I think that was to like 256 men. And since the start of that, we've been able to house 61 men. It's cost a fortune, but it's worth it, and about 55% of those people stay housed. It's a hard population. Housing is. I wish I could say that 95% of them stayed housed, but that's just not. It's not normally possible.
That's a terrific program.
Thank you.
In my opinion.
Thank you. Anything else? Have a great night, guys. Thanks. Thank you.
Make it easier to stay at night.
Make it long.
Hi, I'm Karen Ellman, and I'm a volunteer at Volunteers in Medicine in St. Charles. And if you want to just follow along with the presentation, our mission and staffing, we're serving the healthcare needs of St. Charles and Lincoln counties. We've done that for 23 years now. And once again, we were started by a group of grassroots citizen group that was interested in meeting those needs of those citizens that did not have any medical insurance or any type of state assistance. Our patients tend to have chronic illnesses. Just as a reminder, we are not a walk-in clinic. We are just like your doctor's office. Patients call, they make appointments. They tend to see the same doctor every time they come. We're open 2 days a week by appointment only. We also do referrals to a network of doctors and specialists as needed, as well as local hospitals, including SSM St. Joe and Barnes St. Peter's for testing, blood tests, diagnostic tests, and the like. And then what we're most proud of is we are an all-volunteer staff composed of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, RNs, dietitians, pharmacists, pharmacy, and nursing students. In 2018, we do a value of services every year. Just to give you an idea of if someone was paying for all of this, what it would cost. We had 11,378 on-site volunteer hours last year, which equated to about $467,000 if someone was paying for that. We had $2.7 million worth of services that was provided or facilitated to our patients, and that was on a budget of $147,000. So part of those services include 389 off-site referrals to specialists and things like PT, OT, those kinds of things. And it also included 3,000 off-site tests and procedures at the various hospitals, which include blood tests, x-rays, those kinds of things. We had about 3,800 patient visits in that period, and we dispensed pharmaceuticals totaling about, I think it's about $1.2 million in pharmaceuticals. And that is composed of the Schnucks Pharmacy or Express Scripts. Those are pharmaceuticals that we pay for out of funds that we get from grants such as yours. That was a little over $76,000. We were able to provide clinic pharmaceutical samples that we get from AmeriCares and various organizations that send us free samples. about $250,000 in these free samples. And then we also get pharmaceutical company patient assistance totaling $931,000. And these are for very expensive medications that people who don't make enough money they can get from the pharmaceutical companies. So these include things like your inhalers. We give them samples to get them started, and then they'll get inhalers from the company. Inhalers cost anywhere from $300 to $600 per inhaler, just to give you an idea. Lyrica, all of these drugs that are new that you hear advertised all the time on TV, I mean, they're thousands and thousands of dollars. So anyway, that all amounts to anybody that invests $1 in the clinic, we are able to turn that into $19 in health care for our clients. So, and that's been running anywhere from $18 to $21 over the last 5 years or so. In 2019, facts through October, one of the major things that we've implemented this year is a new pharmaceutical program. We were put in touch with a company called Dispensary of Hope. They're located in Nashville, Tennessee, and they provide pharmaceuticals to not-for-profit clinics. Basically, what we do is we pay a $7,500 fee one time a year, and for that $7,500 fee, we can get as much medication as we need based on what they have. And they tend to have the routine heart medications, depression medications, your GI medications, your cholesterol medications, those things that typically we have been paying for at Schnucks. So we've been able to so far probably decrease our Schnucks bill. This started in June, and it didn't like happen all of a sudden. It's been gradual. But so far we've been able to decrease that Schnucks bill, I think this past month, to about a third of what we were normally paying at Schnucks, and we hope to get that down a little bit lower. So anyway, so now the patients are having a lot of their prescriptions actually filled at the clinic, and they don't even have to make a trip to Schnucks. But in some instances, they still have to get some at the clinic and some at Schnucks. So anyway, we estimate cost savings of between $12,000 and $15,000 by the end of 2020. And if you look at, they've been running about $76,000 last year, so that's a good 20%. So we feel like that's worth it. And since our labor is free, we can always get more nurses and pharmacists then that are willing to give up their time in order to decrease those costs. We've dispensed over $100,000 in clinic pharmaceuticals so far this year. We've dispensed $65,000 in clinic paid prescriptions through Schnucks and RX Outreach. We've had 2,700 patient appointments, which includes 120 new patients. The clinic nurses are continuing to draw blood for SSM designated patients. SSM no longer has phlebotomists available to our patients, so we're drawing their blood and processing it, and they do a pickup at 1 o'clock every day. So anyway, it's great to have nurses that are flexible. We've also trained 6 additional RNs and 2 pharmacists to do the DOH prescriptions, because now if their prescription is filled at the clinic, we don't just give them a bottle and say, well, do this or do that. They actually have a label on it just as if it had come from a pharmacy, so that they have the correct directions and all that. And once again, it does take a little more time. We also held our golf tournament and Cajun cook-off in September. The next page, I addressed this in the grant proposal. This has to do with our improvement initiatives to decrease the clinic paid medications. Since the clinic paid medications are the bulk of our budget every year, we're always looking at ways that we can get more value for the money that we have. If you go back to 2015, we were paying about $112,000 a year to Schnucks and RX Outreach for clinic paid prescriptions. And at that point, we were also about $30,000 in red on our budget. And it's like, we could not sustain this. So it's like, okay, we need to figure out what can we do to stop the bleeding, okay? And at that point, we implemented a $10 copay for all controlled substance prescriptions that patients get. This is all your narcotics, your benzos, your not your antidepressants, but things like Xanax, those kinds of things that are controlled. And once again, that probably composed of maybe about, I don't know, a third to half of our prescriptions were of the controlled nature. So that really was able to help us stop that bleeding. So it was no longer $30,000 a year, it was more between 10 and 20 a year that we were in the red. So then in 2016, we implemented an automated inventory system that we got free of charge through AmeriCares, which helps free clinics with their patients. We got that program, and also through that, we got an increased number of free sample drugs. And we started issuing those more. We used to just give a sample once in a while, but now we made a concerted effort to try to give that. The problem with that, I mean, we used it as much as we could, but when you would order meds, it was only on what was available, and if it was available, they wouldn't send you enough for a clinic that's open 2 days a week. They would send you boxes of this stuff. So a lot of times, this stuff would expire before we could, give it out. So, once again, it's like, well, yeah, we're saving money, but look at the stuff we're wasting, and, only so much will even clinics in South America take. If it's expired, it's expired. So anyway, we were able to get our costs down to, about the levels that it is the last couple of years, about, $76,000, $77,000 a year. And that's down from 112. So that was really pretty significant. So now this year with this new program that we implemented in June, we are able to, first of all, order what we need on a weekly basis. And we've set up our med room now. It's got boxes just like any other pharmacy. It's set up like a small pharmacy now. It's much more organized. We don't have the waste in terms of the drugs that we do get. We order them as we need them. And once again, the patients pick up their drugs, at the clinic and get them refilled there. But we didn't do everything in June. What we did is that when we got our bill from Schnucks at the end of June, we looked at the drugs that patients were getting from Schnucks, and we notified Schnucks, okay, cancel the refills on this. And then we've been doing that now every month. And, it started out, there were probably about 130 drugs, every month that we were canceling. Now it's down to about 60. So, we're trying to wean it out gradually. And obviously we've notified the patients, we have communications with them so that they know how this is going to work now. So anyway, that's been really a major effort this year in terms of trying to improve our cost. And once again, we hope that by the end of 2020, we'll save between $12,000 and $15,000 from where we are now with our cost. One last thing, I want to tell you a story about one of our patients, and this is probably a little more atypical, but not all of our patients are going to be coming to the clinic forever and ever. We also are a service for people that are in an immediate need in a crisis. We had about a 40-year-old male come to our clinic. This was late last year. He presented at the clinic barely able to walk, had severe neuropathy in both feet, and was just limping in. I mean, he was, this far from a wheelchair. He had spent the past several years in the Middle East as a contractor, and he'd been in Afghanistan. He actually had a wife and children that were in the Philippines. It got to the point in Afghanistan, he started having all these symptoms and he couldn't work anymore. He went to the Philippines, where his family was. He'd been examined there. People could not find out what was wrong with him. They just couldn't figure it out. So he wasn't able to work anymore. He ended up coming back here because his mother, lived in St. Charles, and was actually a healthcare professional, and she basically brought him to the clinic. Said, I don't know what to do. He has no money at this point. He can't work, and he can barely walk. Dr. Farini, our medical director, obviously did a new patient, workup with him, did a multiple blood test, and believe it or not, he had hypothyroidism, which, to you and me, we find out about it, maybe you lose a little weight, or, your hair's thinning, or whatever, you have typical symptoms of that. But this man, if it goes untreated for a long period of time, and in his instance, it had been over a year that he was starting to develop these symptoms, it can lead to severe nerve damage, which is what he had. And Dr. Farini, it's like just by doing a good workup on him, realized that his thyroid was so low, and basically started him on, the thyroid drugs, and within about 4 to 6 months, it was, getting back up to normal. A lot of his symptoms were disappearing, and then here's the good news. He no longer had to be seen at our clinic. He got a job for 6 figures, which included healthcare insurance, and he's now able to drive again. He has just a minimal residual limp, but basically, what a great story. And he's no longer seen at the clinic, but his mother has made a donation to us. So anyway, we do really appreciate the funds that we get from you every year, and we hope we can benefit from you again this year. Any questions?
So you said, I have a question. So you said you don't have trouble getting nurses and doctors to volunteer. That comes pretty.
Well, I wouldn't say trouble, but I think fortunately, since we've been in business for such a long time, we get about half of our doctors are from St. Louis, and that's kind of been traditionally that. And unlike the clinic that's in Lake St. Louis, they're actually having to pay doctors because they can't get doctors. And part of it, St. Louis doctors don't want to drive that far, So anyway, and then, a lot of it's just through word of mouth. In fact, like with this new medicine program, and we needed, more nurses, and, I recruited my 2 best friends. I said, okay, guys, you've been retired for a couple years. It's time. Come to the clinic. And, so they're both working there now. So, it's just word of mouth, and a lot of it, you just have to talk to people, and, they're glad to do it. So,
do you ever foresee a time when you will have a paid staff? All volunteer organizations do wonderful work, but the instability that's kind of hanging over their head in case you have a shortened position or things like that.
That once again hasn't been an issue for us, fortunately.
I didn't realize you needed. Do you have volunteer pharmacists also?
Yeah, actually, just in the last 3 years, we've we're now on our 3rd volunteer pharmacist. So, we have 2 right now, and one of them is working like on Wednesday mornings. And she's a young person. She's like in her late 30s, has 2 kids, and has a full-time pharmacy job, and she's just working a couple hours extra every week.
I know she's a retired pharmacist, and I'm thinking about having caught you.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah.
They went to South America the last 2 summers, so that's why I'm.
No, that would be great. So, and we got a gal a couple of weeks ago who is between jobs. Now, she's looking for a job, and we realize it's like, she may only be there for a couple of months, but, in the meantime, at least she's, working 1 day a week. So.
And they live like almost within walking distance. So.
Oh. Okay.
Karen, well, every year I mention this, and it's in your application again about dental care, where you just you have to refer patients to resources available, but they're on a sliding scale, not really affordable.
I know, it's very frustrating. We have a former board member, Dr. Schmidt, who is a dentist, and if it's a really bad case, he will see them and he'll pull a tooth, but he can't see all of our patients. So we basically provide the antibiotics, and we have a 2-page list of all of the clinics and how much they would charge and the sliding scale and all that. But what's the name of it? Is it Kreider?
Right.
That they advertise that they have dental care, but, and I put this question to their director a couple of years ago. They have enough dental care that lasts like January and February. I mean, so, and if you want to, you know, get somebody there after that, it's like lots of luck, you know,
It's a
so.
shame with maybe all these universities in town or whatever, a retired dentist, I don't know, it's a shame. It's basic health care, dental care. I mean, just basic.
And if you look at how it impacts their other health,
Yeah,
it's
that's what I'm
like,
talking
it's
about.
really, it's
Right.
bad. you know.
So,
So, and I know I put that in there every year.
no,
but that
keep
is
on
a-
doing it, because I'm
yeah.
only, you know, it's,
That is
it should
a
not be
real-
taken off the table. I mean, keep on driving toward some kind of solution. I don't know. But, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Are they? Are they going to South America? They go to the same city, St. Charles.
It's cold.
They turn the heat off because turn some heat at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Saving money here?
I'm back.
Hey, good to see you. Good.
The government says.
Thank you.
How are you?
Yep.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So don't everybody stop with their coats on yet.
Yeah, right at the time we was last time.
All right. So, enough. So, we thank you all for opportunity to provide CAF funds. We're going to talk about the Salvation Army today. I'm Pierre Hampton, Regional Shelter Administrator, and my role is to supervise the programs. We work in 4 continuums, and in terms of grants management and program supervision. Ms. Nelson here is our shelter director, and Ms. Fields in the back is our Assistant Divisional Social Services Director. Just want to get that off there. I'm just going to go through a little brief. You probably remember from last time, but I'll kind of reiterate. Salvation Army was started in 1865 by William Booth. He began working with individuals on the streets, doing some of the work that we do today in terms of outreach and working with those most vulnerable populations. His movement started the Salvation Army, and from there we have continued that mission today. Salvation Army is worldwide. Salvation Army is national. Salvation Army is local. Salvation Army works as one of few agencies that have programs in all 4 neighboring continuums. Salvation Army is a member of Regional SCLARCH, Regional Commission on Homelessness, which is a collective organization of members that address homelessness across the 4 regions. In addition to that, Salvation Army has a long, extensive history of working with the homeless. In 1983, we developed the first concept of putting families into housing with support services. Later, that was called transitional housing. Salvation Army was one of the first to implement a housing first model by taking folks in the city of St. Louis, taking folks right off the streets, putting them into housing and bombarding them with support services. Salvation Army today operates 3 regional shelters, several permanent housing programs, and newly to our addition is Midtown Treatment Services, located in St. Louis City, Ferguson Empowerment Center to address issues in the basic community among 4 apartment complexes, and also working with the veterans. Salvation Army is very active in addressing veteran homelessness and also active member on the Functional Zero plot for working with to ending homeless veterans. Within this region, Salvation Army operates 2 core centers. Our core centers provide food pantries, emergency social services, and other services to the St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren communities. We continue that work today through William Booth, what he did in 1865, through our O'Fallon Emergency Lodge. I'm going to let Ms. Nelson talk about what we do at the O'Fallon Shelter.
Good evening. I thank my supervisor for always being there for me, my regional director, for always being there. But let me tell you really what really is going on. Okay. We're the only shelter between St. Charles Bridge and Lincoln County that houses any and everyone. we take as individuals for granted. The population we serve are people that everybody has thrown aside. I listen to everybody, and I love all of these organizations because I work with them. But I also work with the people who done slipped through the cracks. What about in your organization a person that don't want to do nothing, who's too argumentative for you, who doesn't fit the criteria? What happens to them? They come to me. I have 120 days from the time that they enter to take them from homelessness to housing. But not only just take them from homelessness to housing, but to give them back some dignity. Ours is a family shelter. We not only service women with children, we service men with children. And a lot of people may not want to hear it. We have just as many nowadays men in domestic violence as we do women, because I have them come to the shelter. Okay? I've been in mental health for over 32 years. I know I don't look it, but I have. I worked for St. Louis State Mental Institution. I worked for Malcolm Bliss. That's what they call the big daddies. I have seen such a rise in mental health right now. And it's not just women and men. That's a whole family. When you have a whole family that suffers mental health issues. So you're not just dealing with the mom or the dad, you're having to deal with children. And we bring in parents as teachers. We bring in crisis nursery. We bring in first steps. Because yes, we too have children that are 4 and 5 years old who are not yet speaking. But by the time that they leave, they are speaking. Because we take a great deal of time into developing our families. See, I don't like to call them clients. They're called guests. Because we want to treat them like they're there and not just a number or a statistic. See, what we do is we try to teach them how to go back to being, let me just put it this way, go back where they first learned how important they were. Every day, Monday through Friday, we have groups. We call them focus groups. They're from 9 to 10. They're only an hour. But we focus on what it's going to take, because we can get them a house. Some of them we can't, but some of them we can get you a house. But how are you going to maintain it? We work on, with empowerment groups, we talk about choices, decisions, accountability. We have to talk about time management, money management, budgeting, self-esteem, job readiness, respect and dignity, all of these things that are going to take to maintain housing. We have real difficult cases because we have people with felony warrants. We have people that are on probation and parole. We have people on there that don't have enough income. We encourage our guests that come in, they'll come in and say, oh, I can't work, I'm on SSI. Well, by the time that they leave, they don't got that ticket to work. Now they're working at Snooks. They're working at Walmart. They're working at McDonald's. I love O'Fallon because O'Fallon loves the shelter. But we still need help because they're not making enough money. Sometimes we have to double the amount of security deposit to get them in. And though where they done been through 3 or 4 different agencies, this is their last stop, some of them. This is where they find themselves. And we work hard because, let's put it this way, God is everything. And without him, there's nothing. And we can't force that on them. But they come looking for They looking for some help. They looking for something that's greater than themselves. They want to stop getting high. They want to stop having their mind race at 50 miles an hour. And see, before we can put them into housing, we got to address that. We got to address you learning how to be a mom again. First of all, how to be a person again. And what we work on all day long, we can cover it. But just like with a pimple or with what do you call the boils, you can doctor on it all day long. But if you don't get to the core of it, all it's going to do is resurface again. And that's what we do. We work on the core. What's really going on with you? How can we help you? Case management, I'm supposed to meet with them once a week. Sometimes 3 and 4 times a week. But if that's what it takes, what's my biggest joy? When these as of right now, we have used this grant from last year. Oh, speaking of last year, I spent all y'all money. Okay, I told you I was gonna spend it. This year I need more money. I do, because the need is there. It's trying to negotiate with these landlords. And it's not all their fault because people have burned them. But they need to know, I've got this security, this amount of money, so in case they tear up my property, I've got something that's going to help me to come back on. So, and everyone that left out of here going into housing benefit from the money that you all gave me. And I promise you, whatever you give me this time, it will be gone. But that's going to be helping somebody else to go back to where they first learned that they were important and that they were deserving of somewhere to call home. Mr. Pierre.
One of the things I want to emphasize on the sheet here in terms of support services, Ms. Nelson kind of emphasized, is pastoral care. Salvation Army is a church. We don't impose this on our residents, but every resident that comes through has the opportunity to meet with the pastors of the coordinates, which is not right on site. So that spiritual assessment is vital, and you'd be surprised how sometimes that kind of gets them revved up to do better while they're in the shelter, and we have services right next door as well. So that's one of the uniqueness of Salvation Army. Some of the trends we've seen in homelessness is, I think someone mentioned more older population. They have income, but for some reason they haven't been able to navigate the housing system as much, so they find themselves homeless, and especially with some of our single ladies. Also homeless due to short-term housing. We have a lot of folks that have been living in hotels for a period of time, and due to lack of funds, they now coming into the shelter. We still see individuals paying more than 50% of their income on housing. We're seeing multiple substance use, not necessarily, marijuana. We're seeing heroin use. We're seeing an increase in fentanyl. Our staff is trained in terms of Narcan training to help those individuals. And we're seeing more mental health treatment of folks who are going through mental health treatment, but for some reason along the way they have lacked the follow-up that they need to move forward. We talk about road to success, and what you've heard tonight is mainly about partnership. Salvation Army likes to partner with everyone in the room. We partner. We don't, get upset when someone else is doing it. We say, well, what can we do? If you're gonna do the case management, we'll provide the residency services at the shelter or vice versa. We also try to work together to alleviate barriers. Ms. Nelson's out there each and every week, constantly talking with landlords, trying to advocate for folks, and landlords are saying, well, what about this? Ms. Nelson's advocating, saying, well, they have changed since they've been here in the shelter. I'm going to go ahead and vouch for them. I'm going to follow up with them for a couple of months to make sure everything's going okay. And she alluded to housing issues, increase in housing. It still becomes a challenge in this particular area in terms of cost and people being able to afford affordable housing. One uniqueness about Salvation Army is Pathway of Hope. This is a support component Every family that goes through O'Fallon Lodge gets connected with our Pathway of Hope coordinator automatically. She comes in, she does an assessment, and she follows up with that family for a period of time. So if that family gets on the verge and they're having difficulty paying the rent, utility issues, just other issues, they contact that Pathway of Hope worker, and that Pathway of Hope worker will connect them to vital resources. What we do at O'Fallon Lodge is the same thing William Booth did back in 1865, and that's help the most vulnerable populations. Either they come to us or we go out and get them and bring them to the shelter. We work well with the coordinator entry. We get a lot of referrals from coordinator. I think Joe Man get the 40%, we probably get the other 40% in terms of referrals. So we get people that come through. We get some turnaways to it. Some people got ready for shelter at the time, so we get the bulk of those referrals as well. But we continue to do the work of Salvation Army. CAP funds allows us to do that work, allows us to pay for vital staffing, vital shelter essential services, and also services to get these folks on from homelessness to self-sufficiency.
And can I say this? Everyone that has left the shelter in the last 3 years using the CAB funds has not returned back to homelessness. How do we track them? Every year we have Thanksgiving dinner. Every year we have Mom's Day, Dad's Day, and we have a celebration as well for the guests that's there, as well as the ones that have gone into gone into housing. And I call them up, because I tell them, I say, I can't call you if you can't keep the same phone number, okay? Or sometimes they just come by, or they call, hey, Miss Wendy, don't want to talk. Or when you happen to be going up to Snooks, and I'm trying to sneak and buy wings, and they're standing at the cash register ringing it up, you know. So they come back and because I always stress to them, pay it forward. Because what you do here and how you do it is going to reflect on what we can achieve and what help we can get. Any questions?
Questions?
You two were here last year, right? I've heard probably about 12 or 13 presentations from the Salvation Army over the years, and you've had some wonderful people. But you two seem to be the best ones yet. I just wanted to say that. I mean, you really do. I mean, you can tell your heart's into it, and keep up the good work. I hope you see you next year. But yeah, I just wanted to pay that compliment.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try not to take 2 hours to get home tonight.
Right on.
All right. Last but not least.
I didn't mind waiting till last until you turn the heat off.
Keep us awake.
We saved the best to last.
You get until midnight.
We'll make you first next year, I promise.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be back and share a little bit about our organization. Connections to Success. Well, first of all, I'm Brad Lambert, and I'm a co-founder of Connections to Success, and we're in our 21st year of operations. Our purpose is to empower low-income families with the tools and resources needed to transition from dependency to economic stability. And we do this through our training and service delivery model that we call Pathways to Success. And Pathways has the following components. It begins with a 3-week training that we call personal and professional development, where participants gain knowledge and understanding about themselves and are able to identify their assets and create a plan on how to use them. That's followed by intense case management utilizing trained life transformation coaches that assist participants in navigating the barriers and obstacles that they face. We then have career specialists that assist in employment, education, and skills training to help them begin that movement towards economic stability. And then throughout and ongoing, for as long as they desire, we have ongoing support through weekly meetings, mentoring, coaching, and other assistance. As we state in our application, escaping homelessness is virtually impossible without steady employment, and we have selected our outcomes to reflect this. Outcome 1 has to do with employment, and our goal there is to achieve steady employment within 6 months for 70% of those that complete our 3-week class. Outcome 2 has to do with recidivism, and it's the 1-year recidivism rate, and that is defined as returning to prison based on a parole violation or committing a new offense. And the current 1-year average in Missouri is approximately 28%. And our target outcome is to reduce that to less than 10%. As you can see, economic stability is highly dependent on staying employed and staying out of the criminal justice system. And I'll share with you our actual outcomes from our 2018 CAB service report. Our employment rate measured at 6 months was 66% for all those that we enrolled, and 81% for those that completed our 3-week training. And this was based on a target of 70%. Our target recidivism, again, was to be less than 10%, and our actual was 0% based on total enrollment. So as we move into 2020, I want to share a couple of focus areas in St. Charles County that we're moving into. This past year, we completed a pilot class of 17 and 18-year-old seniors at the Wentzville Alternative High School. The alternative school is for students who have struggled academically, socially, and in many cases come from low-income families, suffering unemployment, homelessness, and other life-scarring circumstances. These students were noted for poor attendance, discipline issues, and most were not expected to graduate. We enrolled 10 students who completed our personal and professional development class over the 15-week semester. And for a group of students not expected to graduate, the results were impressive. 9 of the 10 graduated high school this past May. 3 enrolled in fall classes at the St. Charles Community College. 2 enrolled at Rankin Tech, and 3 are working full-time. These results led to a commitment from the Wentzville School District to train 40 students this academic year. We currently have 18 in training now in the fall semester. The second area of focus for the coming year is the St. Charles County Jail. We've been having conversations with jail officials about providing our job training class pre-release for those adults who will be released in our county needing housing and employment assistance. And as some of you may have remembered from last year, I presented that we're now providing this training pre-release inside Missouri correctional facilities. And that's continued in 2019, and we're seeing it continue to increase into 2020. The results of this pre-release training has caused an increase in employment and family reunification, and we're hoping to see similar results locally at the county jail. So in summary, we're asking that you will continue to support us this year, allowing us to expand our service delivery to reach hard-to-serve families in our county. And as the lady from the Salvation Army said earlier, we've already spent all your money, so we need more. And I'm brief. I was told to be brief, and I'm brief, and I'll now turn it over to you for any questions or comments.
I'm just struck by the success with the high school kids. They have a lot more promise. And one other comment I'd like to make is that the problems that they have with probation and parole have with these people coming out being unprepared to come out of incarceration with jobs and things like this. I think they need to make sure they get these people connected to the program.
Well, and And I have to say, our partnership with the Department of Corrections is continuing to strengthen each year, and being able to go inside the prisons now and do this training. We talk about recidivism being about 30% in the first year. Of 80% of that 30% occurs probably in the first 90 to 120 days. So we have to catch them fast when they get home, and really get our arms around them and begin to help them move forward. So the more we can take services inside the walls, not just what we do on the life skills side, but also bring more actual hard skills training inside the prisons as well. So when these people walk out the door, they are job ready, and many of them have offers, and they can go to work the next day. That's what's going to drive recidivism down and reduce the prison counts that we have. So it's a big problem, but there's a lot of good, innovative things that are happening right now in Missouri around reentry. So we're just excited to be a piece of it.
I hope you can bring that program here to St. right down the street.
Yeah, we do too.
Have you been received with open arms?
We
as
have.
You should?
We have. There's some new officials overseeing the jail, and we've been having discussions with them. We tried it in the past, but there were just too many obstacles to get inside and do the training. But I think we're seeing some daylight now.
Good.
And I hope to come back here next year.
It can only be a win-win. I mean,
it is.
And you already have experience at the state level in the prisons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'd throw open the doors for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jail prison, or jail official.
Yeah, all right. Keep up the good work, Brad.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You've been here enough. We know it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do your contract. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, all of you who stuck this out to the very end. I know it was a long night, so we appreciate it and enjoyed all the presentations.